In Universe 7, the Saiyans were infamous, known for their cruel demeanors and their warrior lifestyles. Of course, any Dragon Ball fan could tell you that. It's one of the defining traits of the Saiyans, and it ultimately caused the story to play out in the way that it did. However, what if we changed that? Similar to how Universe 6's Saiyans were good people, what would happen if we changed that for Universe 7 and made them the same way? The following video is a compilation of parts from an old series that I did, one where we explore just that. And as you could probably guess, making the Universe 7 Saiyans good people does change quite a bit. But I don't just have to tell you that, I could show you. So, join me today as we find out what would have happened if the Universe 7 Saiyans were good. Let's begin, starting with part 1. Just like normal, Frieza recruits the Saiyans to join the Frieza Force. Well, by recruit, he just takes them under his reign, like they don't really have a choice. But their massive strength and numbers are going to be helpful for him. Instead of slaughtering planets constantly with no remorse, the Saiyans act more as backup muscle for the Frieza Force, and occasionally do get into wars with other planets, but only out of necessity, either when provoked, or when they really have no other choice because they're demanded to do it by Frieza. They're basically his slaves after all, so this isn't going to really change the fact that they're going to be fighting a lot. And this slavery is something they're growing tired of. Even though Frieza is immensely strong, the Saiyans are growing impatient with him. A rebellion is brewing. Rather than Beerus suggesting that Frieza destroys the Saiyans, this doesn't happen since the Saiyans aren't a bad thing, so Beerus doesn't really see a need to suggest this. And Frieza, though, he sees them as a problem. Frieza still gets the idea to destroy them, because he sees that they're getting more and more rowdy by the day, and they're getting more powerful. He hears rumors of some Super Saiyan or Super Saiyan God, and this is the final straw for him. Of course, some Saiyans realize that this rebellion means doom for them, and Frieza might eventually get rid of them anyways if they don't rebel. So Bardock decides to at least save his son Kakarot if anything happens to the planet, so not every Saiyan is wiped out by the impending rebellion or destruction of planet Vegeta. His other son Raditz is off planet with some others, so he knows at least Raditz will be safe too. Kinda like in the Broly movie, one night, he and Guinea steal a space pod and send Kakarot off planet Vegeta to a faraway planet called Earth in order to give him a chance to survive. Not long after, Frieza arrives to the planet with the intention of destroying it, and this is the perfect opportunity for the Saiyans to rebel. With Bardock included, all of the Saiyans who can fight charge towards Frieza's ship together, with the Frieza Force fighting in response. They're able to kill a lot of Frieza soldiers in the process, and they keep pushing towards Frieza, with some of the Frieza Force soldiers actually joining the Saiyans. Yet things change once Frieza himself appears.
That was quite an amazing show, monkeys. Sadly, I will have to cut it short.
Frieza charges a ball of energy with one finger and flings it towards the planet. Every Saiyan there focuses their efforts on the blast, trying to push it back desperately. Frieza's kinda amused by this, so he just makes the ball larger in response. Every Saiyan present is vaporized, and planet Vegeta and all of those on it are destroyed. Frieza, now feeling much more content and free of worry, goes back to his normal business. On Earth, things go pretty similar to normal. Kakarot still arrives and is found by Grandpa Gohan and renamed Goku. And the events of Dragon Ball pretty much happen all the same. Goku still hits his head and forgets about the past. And, it doesn't turn him good because he already was good, but we're just gonna keep him the same. Goku still marries Chi-Chi, they have a son named Gohan, and the world is pretty peaceful at the moment, except for the fact that Piccolo Jr. is around somewhere, probably planning his revenge. After a few years pass from Goku's wedding, Goku and his friends decide to meet up again at Kame House since it's been a while since they've seen each other. Somewhere else on Earth, a farmer notices some sort of meteorite lands on his property. He goes to check it out, and he sees a large ship, not just some small metal ball, with a large man emerging from it. Raditz has arrived. He scans the farmer's power level and reads it as 5, and rather than attacking him, Raditz just immediately flies off, because, he doesn't really have a reason to attack him. Saiyans aren't like that anymore. They're not just going to attack weaker people for no reason. He just flies off because he detects a high power level, so he goes off to find it and he encounters Piccolo. Piccolo senses this power coming towards him and he's immediately alert, ready to face this potential threat. Raditz asks him if he knows a Saiyan named Kakarot, and that he has come here from space to speak with him. Raditz tells Piccolo that he's surprised to see a Namekian here as well, and asks how he got here all the way from Namek. Piccolo is kind of shocked at the moment and really at a loss for words. He doesn't really know what Raditz is talking about, but before Piccolo can interrogate him about who he is and why he's here, Raditz senses another high power level and flies off, telling Piccolo thanks anyways. At Kame House, all is going smoothly when suddenly, a strange man arrives, which of course is Raditz. Raditz takes off his scouter and covers the microphone, so Frieza can't hear the following conversation. Rather than feeling threatened by this man with a high power, he doesn't seem too intimidating, so everyone is more confused than scared or feeling provoked. Raditz tells Goku that he, as well as Goku, are part of an alien race known as Saiyan, and that they are brothers, and Goku's real name is Kakarot. Goku's of course skeptical of all this, but as Raditz talks more and more, it becomes more apparent that he's telling the truth. Goku remembers that Grandpa Gohan found him just alone somewhere as a child, not to mention no one knew Goku's real parents, and I mean he had a tail like Raditz did. So that just makes it more obvious. Same for Gohan. Raditz informs his brother that he's here to seek help to fight a threat known as Frieza, an evil tyrant who's destroyed their people and many others. Given that the circumstances of planet Vegeta's destruction were different along with the rebellion, the surviving Saiyans are aware that this is how their planet was destroyed, not by some meteor. Raditz tells Goku that they've been trying to gather all of the remaining Saiyans they can, trying to increase their power in order to defeat Frieza, and they want Kakarot to join. Understandably, Goku is hesitant to agree, but knowing Goku, we can kind of assume that in this scenario he would want to meet some stronger people and he would jump at this opportunity. If Raditz is the weakest of the group, yet still a lot stronger than Goku, Goku sees this as a nice opportunity because there's probably a lot stronger people out there that he can meet. Not just Frieza, but the other Saiyans as well. Krillin and everyone else present protest this and they tell Goku he can't just leave, and that this guy could just be bluffing for all they know. He does have a son to take care of after all and can't just leave Earth. Raditz responds to this by saying if Frieza isn't defeated, he may just come to this planet next and destroy it as well for all they know, or enslave all the people. While Frieza doesn't have any reason to come to Earth yet, he very well could find out about it in the near or far future and try to take over it to add to his growing empire, or just sell it. This isn't just for revenge, but to protect the rest of the free universe. Raditz tells Goku that he could bring his son along as well, as he is a Saiyan and potentially could be pretty powerful given that he's a hybrid, since that might completely change his power and make him something special. Out of nowhere, Piccolo shows up as well, much to everyone's shock. He was able to hear the conversation while observing from a distance because of his huge ears, and he demands to join as well. From their brief conversation, Piccolo knows that Raditz apparently knows about the true origins of King Piccolo and Piccolo himself, so Piccolo wants to know about this. Alongside this, he feels that if anyone's gonna come take over the Earth, it should be him, not this Frieza guy. While he could just hang around Earth and take over on his own with Goku absent, Piccolo wants to play the long game. He realizes that even if he does that now, it won't amount to anything since the Saiyans will just come back stronger and defeat him. Or if Piccolo is able to believe Raditz's rhetoric, then Frieza will just come eventually and do the same. He also wants to know more about this Frieza guy as well, so he can get stronger too. Even though Piccolo has malicious intent, Goku isn't too scared as he could defeat Piccolo easily if he acts up, and Raditz is there too with more power than the both of them combined. This situation is kind of an enemy of my enemy is my friend scenario, which is basically what happened originally with Raditz, with Piccolo and Goku teaming up to defeat a common enemy. Raditz allows Piccolo to join, and with Krillin protesting further, Goku turns to Krillin to tell him he needs to do this. He trusts that this guy is his newfound brother and he isn't lying to him. He could tell that he's being pretty genuine. And he does get to fight strong people either way, because he is Goku after all, and he's kinda naive and tempted by these kind of offers. Raditz, Goku, Piccolo, and Gohan fly off to Chi-Chi so Goku can tell her what's going on now. Chi-Chi's not only confused but enraged, especially since this will cut into Gohan studying. But Goku tells her that Gohan can study science or something in space if he wants, and he can probably learn about more than he could on Earth since there's all aliens or some weird technology in space that no one knows about, and that'll make Gohan really smart and give him an advantage when he comes back. Defeated, Chi-Chi just agrees, only to faint in confusion and fear when she notices Piccolo is waiting outside for them as they head off the train. While he is reluctant to go, Gohan knows that this situation is pretty dire since he's a smart kid and he could realize what's going on, so he's fine with helping, especially since he'll be with his dad the whole time. He doesn't see anything to worry about and he's kind of excited to go into space really. When they get to Raditz's ship, they notice it's damaged from the landing and it can't take off into space, but Goku says Bulma could probably help them out. Raditz notes that this planet's gravity is a lot weaker than their home planet, and that is probably not as good for training in the meantime while they wait for the ship's repair. Intrigued by the idea for more efficient training, he wonders if Bulma could also help them with this, And they fly back to Bulma, and she says that she could build some sort of gravity room on Raditz' ship as well as repair it, so the group trains in the meantime while waiting for Bulma to work her magic. After a few weeks, the repairs are done and the ship is upgraded with the new gravity room for intense training, since the trip will take a decently long time and this will be beneficial. The group boards the ship as it goes off into space, back to the other Saiyans. The journey takes about a year. On the journey, the group is able to grow greatly stronger, and Gohan is being eased into training with Goku around, so he's not really that hesitant to fight this time. Being able to fully tap into his power that we saw in the Saiyan saga, Gohan's power went from around 1300 to close to 4000, given that he has all this intense training, good training partners, and he's also a little more open to fight now. Goku, while not being able to train with King Kai and get the Kaioken or Spirit Bomb, he has a lot of time to train since he doesn't waste most of it running on Snake Way like before. The gravity room also can go higher than the 10 times gravity at King Kai's planet, so Goku is able to achieve a pretty high power level of 13k in his base, with Piccolo close behind at over 11k. Raditz' power jumped around from 1500 to around 15,000, so that's a 10 times increase, and it makes him higher than Goku still, but Goku is catching up. Having good training partners and high gravity makes it easy for everyone to grow more powerful. This time spent with everyone also makes Piccolo a little less evil, similar to the training in the Saiyan saga. They all have a common enemy, and being with people like Goku, Raditz, and Gohan, this year of training and kinda getting to know them more, Piccolo becomes more of an anti-hero rather than the villain that he was before. He also learns about his people from whatever Raditz knows about them. Since he's interested to find out he's from a race of peaceful farmers rather than demons, he wants to go to Namek someday and see his brethren. Time passes as they arrive on a secret planet that they've been hiding on. Everyone exits the ship and follows Raditz into a building. They're greeted by a large Saiyan with a mustache who seems pretty blunt but friendly, and he introduces himself as Nappa, who leads them into another room. There are a bunch of other people in there, some with and without tails as well. It's obvious that they're all Saiyans though. A couple catch Goku's eye. There's one in the corner with a scar on his face and chest, but with no tail, next to one with a mustache. There's also two other Saiyans with blue armor different from the rest, but they look identical to each other. They're twins. There's also one female Saiyan there as well, and there's one that looks exactly like Goku. That female Saiyan, Raditz walks up to her, and he brings her back to Goku.
Kakarot, allow me to introduce you to our mother.
There were some characters introduced that were either there way too early, weren't canon, or shouldn't be there at all. That said, there are reasonings and backstories for each one. This video is labeled as part 1.5 because rather than continuing the story, these are some necessary supplements that are needed to progress the story. And it does get a little bit headcanon-y, but that's tough to avoid for this what if, and I do want to make an interesting and realistic scenario, but still keep it entertaining. So let's get into it, since a lot of you asked for it. Let's begin with a relatively simple one to explain, Vegeta's squad. Vegeta, Raditz, and Nappa were part of a squad like normal. The trio would often be off-planet, and not much would change for their stories, except a few things. For one, rather than being off-planet to destroy stuff, they're usually off-planet because of Frieza's orders for them to patrol some planet or help him take over it, even though they don't really want to use lethal force because they're good, after all. Whenever they weren't being ordered around by Frieza, they worked for the Saiyans as expected. The Saiyans, being much more kind-hearted in this timeline, they'd be doing very different tasks here, kinda like what Universe 6's Saiyans do. If there was a planet in trouble from a non-Frieza threat that was completely out of Frieza's jurisdiction, or something that he didn't know about, nothing really stopped the Saiyans from helping out. They do love fighting, and when Vegeta's squad did something like this, their morale was higher because they were out doing what they liked and weren't being forced indirectly or directly to take over planets. They were actually helping people, making the universe a better place. All under Frieza's nose, obviously. In this free time, they would occasionally do recon on the Frieza force as well, given that they have access to it, and a rebellion was brewing, and for that rebellion to go anywhere, they needed some info. Of course, as we know, it was put to an abrupt end when Frieza blew up planet Vegeta. The trio was still as strong as they were in the original, but we're going to make another change to this group. Although the trio exists, we're going to add two members for this story that need to have a proper backstory, Shallot and Giblet. That's right, the twin Saiyans that are from Dragon Ball Legends, they're actually part of Vegeta's squadron in this timeline. Now as for them, being from video games and not even from that period of time, we're going to have to completely change their backstory. The two Saiyans are about the same age as Raditz, and lived on planet Vegeta like normal and were brought up as part of the Saiyans military, like most Saiyans were. Being the same age, with similar power and experience, the the two were usually assigned to do tasks together, and because of the potential that was obviously seen within them, they ended up being assigned to be with Vegeta and Nappa alongside Raditz, since they showed a lot of promise to be good warriors. Not only are these two comrades with Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz, but they're very close to each other as well. They've gone through everything together, and rather than them being enemies or whatever like a Dragon Ball Legends, or Giblet being a bad guy, they're pretty friendly as brothers and they get along well. Speaking of Raditz, we're going to address someone else here, Turles. This one will be a little weird to fit in, but not as weird as Shallot and Giblet were. I'm going to be taking into account not only what I just mentioned as a new interpretation of canon, but I'm going to reference a somewhat interesting piece of non-canon material known as Dragon Ball Zero. This is a fan manga made by someone you may know named Toyotaro, who is well known for making the Dragon Ball AF manga, which is obviously just a fan manga, but another thing that he's well known for is being the one who makes the official manga for Dragon Ball Super. The reason I'm even bringing him up is because while fan mangas aren't canon, it's just a nice little supplementary manga that he made, and it allows us to fit Turles in nicely and give Raditz some more importance. So, that being said, what actually is Dragon Ball Zero? Well, it's a backstory about Raditz, the original one, and it has a big plot point that I'm adapting from this manga, which is the fact that Turles is present in it, and it's kind of a childhood comrade for Raditz. And since this what if is about Saiyans being good, it only makes sense that Raditz would actually have friends like Turles, instead of just having some nameless comrades that he'd work with from time to time when fighting, and people that he wouldn't actually be friendly with. So here, we're going to give Turles a similar relation to our new protagonist. While not part of Vegeta's squad, he was pretty close to Raditz as they occasionally would be sent on missions together, with Turles even being assigned with Vegeta's squad sometimes. So, here we're going to basically make Turles a best friend for Raditz. The way he survives is similar to who we've discussed so far. He was off-planet at the time of Planet Vegeta's destruction, while he was still a child, pretty much like Vegeta and Raditz. He wasn't with the other Saiyans at the time, rather he was with a few Frieza Force soldiers on an unnamed planet, doing a pretty light work mission. Hearing about the destruction of his planet made him realize that the rumors about Frieza wanting to dispose of the Saiyans were true, and Raditz was alone with others who probably wanted to do the same. These soldiers were given orders to destroy any Saiyans they know, but given that there were so few there, and they were kind of weak and underestimated Turles, the young Saiyan barely survives out of a combination of dumb luck and brute force. Having connections with Raditz, he was able to get into contact with Raditz and his group without the use of Frieza Force equipment, since that could just spy on him, and he regrouped with Raditz, who was with Vegeta, Nappa, Shallot, and Giblet at the time. As for Guinea, in my last video, I mentioned how every Saiyan who could fight went up into the atmosphere to oppose Frieza, which included Bardock. Bardock knew what was happening and he had prepared for it. Bardock himself was prepared to die at any cost just so he could oppose Frieza, and he knew Guinea wasn't as strong and he didn't want her to die in vain. After Kakarot was sent to Earth, Bardock had another space pod stolen for Guinea in case anything were to happen. His plan was to have the rest of his family survive if he couldn't. Knowing that Raditz was with a group of strong Saiyans and on a remote planet, Bardock thought it would be best if she went with Raditz first, so the other Saiyans could help her train somehow and let her have some sort of protection. And yes, she could have gone to get Kakarot and bring her back to Raditz, but Bardock only wanted her to escape under the condition that the battle was actually going on. Since all these Saiyans were in space at once with power levels everywhere, all of these conflicting power levels would be able to mask her escape and she would be able to covertly fly off into one planet. But if she were to go to Kakarot, she would need to make 2 trips, one to Earth and then one back to Raditz. And if she went to Earth then departed with Kakarot, she wouldn't have the other power levels masking her and she would be caught while flying through space. This is pretty much the reason that Dragon Ball Super Broly gave us for why they didn't go together in the first place, so I'm gonna say that's why Guinea won't go there first. But she's able to go to Raditz since she's able to sneak off, and then eventually joins Raditz and his group during this last stand of the Saiyans. With this group all together, that accounts for 7 of the 10 Saiyans I showed off in the last video. We're still missing 3, Tarble, Broly, and Paragus. Tarble is a pretty easy one to fit in. Similar to the reason he's alive when he was introduced, he was also off-planet when it was destroyed. Given that most of the people with him now survived by being off-planet, Vegeta realizes that the same thing might have happened with Tarble and he may still be alive. Vegeta and the group are able to locate Tarble after the dust settles and send their location to him covertly, with Tarble joining the remaining Saiyans without hesitation. He's a kid after all, and he wouldn't want to be alone, and he'd immediately accept going with his brother. There's no reason he wouldn't want to join the group since his brother is there and they're also Saiyans as well and he could trust them, so he would want to go with them. The group of Saiyans spend the remaining years working with the Frieza Force in order to kinda gain their trust and not be destroyed, and they gain a lot of intelligence on the group by doing this. During this time, they also try to search for any other Saiyan survivors on whatever planets they encounter. One day, they stumble upon a barren planet with a decently high power level on it, but not much more, and they decide to check it out. Nappa then realizes the significance of this planet. They land on the planet and find no intelligent life except two Saiyans, an adult named Paragus and his son Broly. One key difference, however, is this planet is not Vampa, and there's a reason for that. So let's get into the backstory for these two. Given that the Saiyans are nicer people, when King Vegeta finds out about Broly, he isn't jealous about his power, and while he is nervous about his power like normal, he instead sees promise and a potential savior for the Saiyan race. He calls Paragus up to his throne and fills him in on his idea. Seeing that Frieza may destroy their planet soon, and Broly has a high power, King Vegeta doesn't want Frieza to find Broly on this planet and kill him, or all of the Saiyans out of fear. He's obviously a little nervous about Broly's explosive power, and he tells Paragus about this. He tells Paragus that he wants to send the two of them off planet to somewhere that's remote but completely habitable, where the environment isn't harsh and deadly like Vampa. This not only keeps Broly off Frieza's radar, and gives him a chance to live if Frieza destroys the planet, but it gives an opportunity for Paragus to get Broly under control without Broly potentially going berserk and destroying the planet. Paragus reluctantly agrees, and he isn't that mad at the king because he realizes the king has no malicious intent, and he also knows that this is pretty much necessary and it's all because of Frieza. Besides, if anything were to happen to planet Vegeta, they would then survive and be found by whatever Saiyans remain, so it wouldn't be that bad of a deal for them since they basically have guaranteed survival now. Now remember how I mentioned that Nappa recognized this planet? Well, King Vegeta actually mentioned this planet and the objective of finding Paragus and Broly to Nappa, since Vegeta is a child at the time and probably wouldn't remember it. Nappa, not really being the brightest guy, also did forget, but his memory is jogged when they actually arrive there, and he knows who the two Saiyans are. Paragus is informed on what happened, and even though it's a few years later, he knows that he must join these Saiyans to avenge the Saiyan race and take down Frieza. Now, we have our full team of Saiyans. In the years preceding this, they continue to gain the trust of the Frieza Force to avoid destruction, and Frieza doesn't fear them, since it's a small group rather than the entire planet of potential threats. Now, on Frieza's good side, and having trained to be strong enough, time passes and Raditz eventually knows that he should go to Earth covertly and recruit Kakarot to the team. You see, when they actually encountered people like Paragus, Broly, Tarble, and Turles, they were only able to get away with this because they were able to stop to these planets on the side during whatever quests they had. So it didn't really catch the attention of Frieza. But there was never any mission that took place near our solar system or Earth, so there was no reason for them to actually stop near Earth and get Kakarot, because that brief stop to planet Earth would actually raise a couple eyebrows and get the attention of Frieza. But now, they actually have a lot of Frieza's trust, since they're kind of his underlings, kind of like how Vegeta, Raditz, and Nappa were in the original, so Raditz is able to freely go off to Earth, without Frieza knowing what he's actually doing. This obviously leads to part 1 of the series, and ends up where we left off in the last part. As a little side note, the human Z-Fighters on Earth keep training because of the threat of Frieza, and Bulma actually has built them a gravity chamber as well like she did for Goku, which they try to get accustomed to, so they still end up training and get strong, even more so than the original. They are Earth's only line of defense at the moment after all. They have no immediate threat now since Piccolo's gone and he's not even that evil anymore, and Frieza doesn't have his sights set on Earth yet. Also, when Goku, Gohan, and Piccolo arrive to see the other Saiyans, it's age 762, around the same time Vegeta and Nappa came to Earth in the original timeline. This year that Goku's been absent has given everyone a greater motivation to train, and to do so more rigorously, and with the gravity chamber now, they're a lot more powerful than their Saiyan Saga counterparts. Instead of just being a little bit stronger than Raditz, their power levels are around 5 times greater than they are in canon. Yamcha is at 8,000, Krillin's at 8,200, and Tien is at 8,400. Yajirobe and Chaozu have been training as well, although they have weaker powers, at 3,800 and 3,700 respectively. Just as a recap, we have a lot of characters here, which will make this more challenging for me, but also have a lot of opportunities to make the story a lot more interesting. Here's everyone involved so far. First, Guinea is at 2,000. Paragus is at 3.8 thousand, a little lower than the original Broly movie, so it fits that he's around that level. Gohan is at 4,000. Nappa is at 10,000 because he has more training, so it's higher than normal. Shallot and Giblet are at 7,000. Piccolo is at 11,000. Goku is at 13,000, Raditz is at 15,000, Turles is at 25,000, which is higher than his movie because he has more training. Vegeta is at 27,000 for the same reason, he has more training. And Broly is the strongest of the group at 50,000. And he's also able to control his wrathful form and push it up to 500,000. And if you watch my last video, you see an explanation as why. They wanted to train him to be more able to control his power, so he can actually do that this time and he won't go berserk and kill everyone. Guinea not really being a fighter is the weakest of the group. But she has been training because she knows she needs to defend herself, and her power is actually higher than what Raditz was in canon. The strongest of the group, unsurprisingly, is Broly, for the reasons I just explained. King Vegeta mentioned to Paragus that he should get Broly under control while they're in seclusion, so Paragus did just that. And he did accomplish it to a degree, but when Broly was found by the other Saiyans, their expertise actually helped train him to master this form completely, and he can go into his wrathful form at will without losing control. Since a few of the Saiyans already knew how to control the Great Ape form, they're able to help Broly do somewhat the same with this form. For Shallot and Giblet, well, I just gave them a random power level in the middle. There's nothing to really base theirs off of, so I feel those power levels are pretty good, I guess? So now that we've covered the power levels of the group, we can actually get into the story. Goku is introduced to Guinea as we left off last time, and he doesn't really know how to react to this. I mean, obviously he's glad to find his mother and see that she's alive, but sadly he doesn't really know or remember her. He feels kind of bad that he doesn't know how to react to this because it's kind of awkward for him in a way, which saddens both of them. To break the awkward tension, Raditz mentioned to her that Goku has amnesia and hit his head as a child, which also is why he doesn't call himself Kakarot, and explains why he doesn't react differently to meeting Guinea. It's weird, but it's a somewhat nice reunion for them. It's sort of closure for Guinea to get to see her son again and for Goku to know that his mother's still alive. Raditz also introduces Goku to Vegeta and his brother Tarble, who I didn't mention in the last part because I wanted to save for this one. They're still important, don't worry. Even though he's only the second strongest, Vegeta is the leader of the group because he is their prince after all, and he has some good leadership skills. Even though we're making the Saiyans good, just as I mentioned in part 1, I'm not going to be changing their personalities completely. I imagine Vegeta being kinda like how he is after the Buu saga or in Super. He's a good guy, but he's kinda cold towards people, and he doesn't really like to show his true emotions. And he's still very prideful. But he's basically the Vegeta we know and love, just in a different point in time. Goku is also introduced to everyone else after this, alongside Gohan and Piccolo. It's an interesting meet and greet. Everyone is interested in seeing Gohan as a hybrid Saiyan because that's something they've never seen before, and Piccolo is kind of unique there because he's the only non-Saiyan. For Goku, Piccolo, and Gohan, it's interesting for them to meet all of these people, especially seeing Goku's family, and that there's a Saiyan who looks exactly like him, that being Turles. Gohan also studies a lot of the Saiyan and Frieza Force technologies that he finds on this planet, as well as the planet itself in its free time. Goku did promise Chi-Chi he'd let Gohan do some studying, and he's doing just that. It's a nice way for him to occupy himself. The technology here interests him, and he wants to show Chi-Chi that he actually learned something while he was on this trip. The Saiyans, although not that strong yet, recruited Goku because they needed strength in numbers, and they want to train to become stronger so they can eventually attack Frieza and defeat him. But as you can tell by their power levels, it hasn't been going as well. They fill Goku in on this, and this is perfect because he basically brought a gravity room along with him, as the ship was modified in the last part by Bulma. This is great for the Saiyans since they now have a new place to train, and it will make it a lot more efficient. It'll speed up the process of gaining power so they can eventually oppose Frieza at a suitor point. For now, all they know from some rumors is that Frieza's power is above 500,000, and apparently he has another form which is nearly twice as powerful as that. They've also heard that he might have 2 other forms, but they're not quite sure if it's true yet. They don't even really know that much about it, but just to be safe, they keep it in mind. And while all of the Saiyans could try to go Great Ape and use strength in numbers, they want to be extra cautious since they only have one shot at this, in order to stop Frieza and avenge their race. Before they plan any attack on him, they need to train and become a lot stronger. Training begins, and it's very effective considering that this is a decently sized group and it benefits from Zenkais as well as the gravity training. From the extended amount of time they've been on this planet, the group has been able to procure certain technologies to help them grow, such as Saiyan healing pods, which means they could do some major training and not worry about life-threatening injuries, although their healing won't be instant. Over about a year of intense gravity training in Zenkais, this is what everyone's power level looks like. Guinea is at 170,000 alongside Paragus, Tarble is at 280,000, Gohan is at 290,000, and it gets a little bit higher when he's enraged. Nappa is at 330, Piccolo's also at 330, and Shallot and Giblet are at 340,000, given that they're pretty much the same power during this whole thing. Raditz is getting a bit stronger and is at 350,000, with Turles ahead of him at 390. Vegeta, the prince, is now third strongest at 450,000, and Goku has actually surpassed him and gotten to 460,000. They're pretty much neck and neck, but the only reason Goku's ahead is because he got a head start on the gravity training because he did it on the way here and he could handle higher levels than Vegeta could earlier on. And then Broly is still the strongest at a whopping 750,000. So as you can see, everyone got a massive increase in power in just 1 year of training, some who are multiple times stronger than before. Goku has actually surpassed Raditz and now is on Vegeta's level, and spends most of his time training with Vegeta and Broly. Gohan, Raditz, and Piccolo also grow close both in power and as people. Raditz and Piccolo are pretty friendly now, making Piccolo also friendly with Turles by extension because it's Raditz's best friend. The same goes with Gohan, who's actually growing close with his uncle, and with Piccolo as his best friend like in the original story. Piccolo still takes kind of a mentor role with Gohan, with Raditz and Turles also helping in. They see the potential in him and want to train him to be the best he can be. Not just with those groups, but everyone has been able to bond with this training, as the trust between all of them grows and the new members fit in nicely. Goku is able to lightly train with Guinea, and he begins to build a better relationship with his mother and his brother during this time. Another interesting development in this time is the fact that everyone is learning to control the Grade 8 form if they haven't already, since they all see the benefits of it. Gohan especially benefits from this since he didn't know how to control being a Grade 8 before, and now he could fully do it at will, as well as create a Power Ball if needed, without losing too much power from creating one. Goku, however, without his tail, went a different route. Considering he trains with Broly a lot, he wanted to see if he could access the Wrathful form, since he can't turn into a Grade 8 like normal anymore. This is extremely hard to control for him, but he's able to do it when he's enraged and is somewhat conscious, but is in a dangerous state when using this power. Similar to this, since he's training with them too, Vegeta tries to learn this form as well, with a little bit better control but not by much, just because he has some experience as a Grade 8. He sees this form as superior to the Grade 8 form for obvious reasons, and he wants to learn to control it like Broly can. They eventually learn to utilize it alongside Raditz and Turles as well, because of their experience and power, but they're prone to going berserk and have very short temper in this form. Sadly, Piccolo benefits the least from this training because the only transformation he has now is his Great Namekian form, which isn't really that useful since it's extremely painful to use and is only ever seen to increase his durability and attack potency, but not actually multiply his power like the Grade 8 form does. He instead spends his time focusing on techniques and is able to make more advanced versions of things like the Hellzone Grenade or Masenko, and he's able to perfect his special beam cannon to a point where it has the same power boost, but instead of taking time to charge now, it's insanely deadly because he can charge it in under a second. And that might not seem like a lot of time, but when you're fighting at insane speeds like these people are, it still is a decent amount of time, but imagine being hit by that still at the same power level with Piccolo being able to charge it much faster. That could be deadly for anyone. This year of training has really helped with bonds, like I said. Much like Vegeta and Tarble in this What If, Goku and Raditz are now really close as brothers as well. But remember, the Saiyans are working with Frieza still, to gain his trust, and this creates some issues. The group is already large enough to raise some suspicion. However, adding 3 more members makes it worse. So they've actually been hiding Goku, Piccolo, and Gohan, as well as suppressing their own powers thanks to what they've learned from Goku about sensing and suppressing ki. The way they do this is by having a maximum of 10 people training at once, since that's the maximum amount of people Frieza thinks are part of the group. If all 13 trained at once, or they suddenly had a massive spike in energy, Frieza or his goons would notice the extra power levels and it would raise some alarms. They try to keep it under the radar, but Frieza himself begins to get suspicious because he notices slight increases in their power. Perhaps I was a bit too gracious in sparing those monkeys. Given that their element of surprise and trust from Frieza is quickly fading, and the fact that they're getting a lot stronger now, they decide that they need to attack pretty soon. They can all use the Grade 8 form or the Wrathful form to multiply their power by 10, and they feel now that they're more than powerful enough to overwhelm Frieza, even if he does have those 2 more forms. If the group all transformed at once, their combined power would not only overwhelm Frieza, but would be in the tens of millions, much greater than the supposed power of Frieza's first transformation, and probably even bigger than any form he has beyond that. However, there's one major mistake that they're making. They don't even know the full extent of Frieza's power. Their collective power is only a small percentage of Frieza's full power. They're grossly underestimating how powerful Frieza is, given that they don't know the full extent of his other forms, or if he even has them, and how powerful they are. Even with this, they decide to create a plan to lure Frieza somewhere, somehow, so they can actually attack. They can't go after him and his ship, since transforming into a great ape in a spaceship would destroy the ship and leave them to die in space, and they can't attack him without using that power. They also don't want to lead him to any planet with bystanders, but they don't know how to make a barren planet appealing to Frieza. But Piccolo gets a great idea. Every Saiyan by now knows about the Dragon Balls, but since they were so far away on Earth from Namek, they didn't really go for them because they didn't need them too badly. At least not yet, but they still know how useful they are, because of what they can do. However, Frieza doesn't know about them yet. He's only heard rumors and legends about them, and he doesn't know if they actually exist or work. He knows that they're from Namek, and since there's a Namekian in the group, Piccolo suggests to the group that they could tell Frieza they found a Namekian who can make Dragon Balls, that being Piccolo, and tell him that they're scattered around this somewhat empty planet that they're already on, which would influence him to come here. They could tell Frieza they've captured this Namekian and convince him that there's Dragon Balls on this planet now, which would make him know that they're real and would influence him to travel to this planet to wish for immortality. All they would need to do is make one fake Dragon Ball to convince Frieza that there's more, and once he's here they could somehow split him up from his soldiers so they could be taken care of, and Frieza will be alone by himself. Besides, every Frieza Force soldier is fodder. Zarbon and Dodoria are nothing, and even the Ginyu Force isn't that much of a challenge. But little do they know, things are going to get pretty ugly once Frieza actually shows his true power. And judging by the poll, a large majority of you said that their plan would end up going smoothly. At least at first it does. There are some things that they didn't really expect to happen. Let's get into it. One day, with nothing particularly keeping him busy, Frieza suddenly gets an urgent call from Vegeta. They found something that Frieza might be interested in. On another remote planet near the one they've been living on, they ended up finding something strange. A Namekian. They came up with a really weird story about how this Namekian has somehow gotten there from Namek, and has been traveling the galaxy to find another potential planet for the Namekians in case they ever need to relocate. And by visiting these planets, he ended up planting Dragon Balls on them due to his mysterious powers. It's obviously very suspicious that Frieza, a random Namekian, was near the Saiyans somehow and had Dragon Balls. But Frieza trusts his gut this time and decides that this couldn't go too poorly. These Saiyans might be telling the truth. As far as he knows, the Saiyans are far too weak anyways to try and betray him by tricking him like this, so maybe they're being honest. And if they are betraying him, he could just kill them pretty easily. They supposedly found one Dragon Ball so far, and after finding the Namekian, they find out about what the Dragon Balls are and the fact that they are on this close planetoid. However, they haven't fully explored it, and the Namekian told them this planet might be dangerous for people to be on. When the Saiyans visited before, their scouters didn't work on it, which is why they're telling Frieza now that they're off that planet. One thing that's important about this planet is that they selected it for the attack because it actually has its own moon. They've waited for weeks and now know that the moon will be full tonight, so this is the perfect opportunity for them to attack. They claim they don't know what to expect from this planet, and they wanted to tell the Frieza Force so they can take care of it and ensure Lord Frieza gets what he wants. Frieza ends up taking the bait, and he begins to head there with his forces. The plan is now in motion, no turning back. Their first goal is to pick off Frieza's forces, which isn't that hard at all. With a combination of some military experience from Paragus, as well as a quick call to Bulma from Goku, the group was able to create a jammer intended to throw off the scouters and make them ineffective, cutting off communication and power level scanning completely. They've planted the jammer somewhere on this planet to make Frieza's scouters useless. Alongside this, Frieza will most likely have everyone split up to search for the Dragon Balls. This will draw them away from Frieza himself or large groups, and the Saiyans could silently strike and take Frieza's army out covertly. With no scouters, no one will even know that people are dying. And on top of that, they won't know the true power of the Saiyans. With preparations in place, Frieza arrives to the planet greeted by Vegeta and his crew. As the de facto leader of the Saiyans, and the one who's known Frieza for the longest, Vegeta ends up giving Frieza the rundown. They warn him that the scouters don't work on this planet for some reason, and that even with the scouters, they couldn't find the Dragon Balls anyways. They have to just rely on their eyes for now. They also present Frieza with a fake Dragon Ball that they've crafted, and claim that there's 6 more. Frieza is still suspicious about this, especially with the fact that their scouters may not work. But to reassure him, Vegeta gives Frieza the Dragon Ball as well as saying he can accompany Frieza, since he's the strongest Saiyan here and their leader. As far as Frieza knows, this is true. Last he heard, Vegeta was the strongest of them, and by having Vegeta with him, he's basically a hostage. If anything goes wrong, he could just finish off Vegeta and call the Ginyu Force in to wipe out the rest so he doesn't have to deal with them. Frieza has his own group, and he sends out 5 other groups alongside it, so there's 1 group per ball. Given that he sees the Saiyans as weaklings still, other than Vegeta, they all hang back. While scouters don't work, the Saiyans can all obviously sense ki now. After getting far enough away, Vegeta slightly raises his ki so the other Saiyans know that it's a signal to go now. The Saiyans go in groups of their own. One group is Goku, Gohan, and Piccolo, then Guinea, Raditz, and Turles, then Shallot and Giblet, Nappa and Tarble, and finally, Paragus and Broly. Using their ability to sense ki, they're able to catch up to the other groups and sneak up on them. High-ranking soldiers like Zarbon and Dodoria aren't even an issue for them. They're able to take out the other groups that Frieza sent as well. While these groups weren't really that strong in comparison, it's important that the Saiyans kill these groups so less people got in their way or tipped Frieza off about them. Vegeta is closely monitoring the groups by sensing the ki around them, and is still a little concerned, but is happy to sense that the groups have successfully taken out their targets. I mentioned before that this planet has a moon. However, it's not exactly nighttime yet. The plan actually went a little faster than normal. Frieza's growing impatient, and they need to stall him for a bit longer. It's no worry though, as they've prepared for this. Once again, Vegeta decides to give out another signal, which this time is intended for Piccolo, who then heads over to a location near Vegeta and Frieza, waiting for them to find him. With Piccolo around, he acts as a decoy to stall Frieza. Vegeta and Frieza keep flying around until they eventually, accidentally, quote-unquote, stumble upon Piccolo, which was really just Vegeta sensing him around here. Obviously at this point, after hours of searching, Frieza is getting a little bit impatient, and is beginning to doubt Vegeta. But those doubts go away since he sees the Namekian is actually here, and then he proceeds to grab him with the intent of torturing him for the information on the Dragon Balls. Yeah, he's still kinda angry and he wants to take it out on someone. Piccolo, however, tells him that the Dragon Balls are scattered at random, so he doesn't know where they are at all. And if Frieza were to hurt him or kill him, the Dragon Balls would disappear, since they're linked to Piccolo. Piccolo also comes up with another lie, saying that he's the key to the Dragon Balls, and they would need him there to actually activate them. At this point, Frieza's still pretty angry, but the plan is going smoothly and as expected, and he's calmed down now that there's an Namekian here. Piccolo ends up joining Vegeta, and they follow him along with some other soldiers that followed, and head behind Frieza to search for the rest of the Dragon Balls. They're really close now. They just need him to search for a few more hours, and then they'll be all set. They could have one person create a power ball, but that would end up draining their power, and they don't really want that now. They need as much power as they can get, so they'd rather wait for the moon. In the meantime, the other groups meet with each other and close in on Frieza, but they don't get too close. They just prepare to strike and follow somewhat far behind. After some more fruitless searching, the moon begins to rise. They were able to successfully take out Frieza's army and stall him long enough for the moon to come up. Now with the first parts of the plan complete, they finally arrive to the final part, collectively becoming Great Apes and killing Frieza. While searching another area that they found while looking around, Frieza hears an explosion behind him that ends up alerting him. All of his forces, well at least the ones that were with him, end up getting wiped out quickly, and Vegeta and Piccolo also jump back from this and they fly towards the group. Now that they're all together again, and the moon is rising, it's time to strike. Frieza is furious that he was tricked and that he actually fell for this, so he attempts to call his soldiers and the Guinea force as well, but his scouter still doesn't work, so he's all alone. He has to handle this by himself, but he doesn't really care. He's not worried, and this might be fun for him. These monkeys are all weak, and he could easily take them out. Last time he checked, Vegeta was the strongest and at most could only be at 50,000 right now for a power level, but he's badly mistaken. It might be an easy fight, but Frieza can at least take pleasure in taking out the rest of the Saiyans. Now that they're all together, the group collectively turns around and looks towards the moon, and they all begin to transform into Great Apes. Frieza still isn't scared, but then the group attacks him, and without even trying, they're able to badly hurt him. Frieza in his first form is only at 530,000, and one Great Ape alone is more than double of that, even someone like Guinea or Paragus. And that's not even mentioning the more powerful ones like Goku, Vegeta, Broly, those guys. Frieza's getting beaten around pretty quickly and pretty badly, and he doesn't have time to transform, but he realizes his form won't be enough. Once he finally gets an opening to transform, he knows that his second form won't be enough, so he jumps straight to his third form and tries to use that. He might be able to match one Great Ape in this form, but he's still outnumbered and overpowered. After testing out this form for himself, he realized that this still isn't enough, and these Great Apes are more powerful than he expected. He's actually somewhat impressed that these simple monkeys came up with this plan, and they could have defeated him easily, with no risk at all, if he didn't have another transformation after his third form. Wanting to finish this, he powers up to his final form, and goes to 50% power, and the group realizes that they're now in trouble. In this form at 50% power, he's at a power level of 60 million, and even if you combine the power of all the great apes, that far outclasses the entire group. It's too late for them to back down now. They've already hurt him enough though, and they've tired him out a little bit while he was in his first form, so his power isn't as potent as before. As great apes, they're able to take him on and put up a good fight with their synergy, with Piccolo watching from the sidelines since he's pretty far outclassed at this point. Frieza is getting tired of this nonsense and remembers something. The moon is what they use to transform. He wonders, maybe if he takes out the moon, then they'll transform back to normal. Frieza begins to laugh and he points his finger towards the moon. In one quick blast, he completely destroys it. Meteors and rubble fall to the planet, turning it into a fiery wasteland, and the Saiyans all return to their normal forms. They're in trouble now. Even without Great Ape, 5 Saiyans can still utilize the power of it: Goku, Vegeta, Broly, Raditz, and Turles. As I mentioned in the last episode, they studied the wrathful form as they saw it could be useful. And while they still can use this power, just the 5 of them are still not enough to fend off Frieza. Even all of the Great Apes together weren't enough. Frieza feels that it is a pity. He expected a good fight, but now he's ready to torture these fools and finally rid them for good. He scans for his first target. Before he can do so, the 5 Saiyans attack him and he dodges effortlessly. He then sees some potentially weak targets for him to kill first. These guys might not be that fun to torture because they wouldn't even be able to survive it, so he'd rather just take out the weaklings right away. He has a few options in his sight. One of them is a female Saiyan who hasn't really been fighting as well as the others, even when she was a Great Ape. And then another is a little bit older Saiyan who seems a little weak by himself too. He then sees another short Saiyan whom he knows is Vegeta's brother, and he also sees a child there. And while he could easily kill the child, which is obviously Gohan, he doesn't want to because he wants to set an impression on him and not to mess with the Frieza force. He might leave him as the sole survivor. Well, if he's lucky. As for the other 3, he could all take them out one by one, or just fire a blast killing them all at once. So now I'm going to leave it up to a poll. Of the Saiyans who aren't fighting right now, who does Frieza end up targeting for death? Guinea, Paragus, Tarble, or all of the above? Vote in the poll to decide what happens in the next part.
I ended off with a rather grim poll asking you guys who Frieza would decide to kill out of the weaker Saiyans. The options were Tarble, Paragus, and Guinea, but the winner was the 4th option, all of the above. Frieza's gonna slaughter everyone anyways, and since these 3 didn't do much, he'll reward them with a quick death. He quickly knocks the Saiyans out of the way, as they watch Frieza rush towards the bystanders. To show everyone what happens when they mess with Lord Frieza, he quickly lunges over to those 3 who were with Gohan and Piccolo, and he knocks Gohan and Piccolo out of the way with tremendous power, sending them flying in the opposite direction. The Namekian may still be useful, and as for the child, he wants to set an impression on him, so they'll both live for now. As quickly as he gets over there, it ends. Frieza shoots 3 death beams at the 3 weaker Saiyans, and they're all helpless to defend against it. They fall to the ground, only to die soon after. The speed and power of this attack was simply too much to handle. Everyone watches in horror. Nappa, Shallot, Giblet, and Turles are speechless, and angered by what they've seen. But this pales in comparison to the other 4 Saiyans with them. Goku, Raditz, Vegeta, and Broly witness it as well. And when Frieza turns back to see these 4, his smug grin turns to a look of shock as he feels their powers rising. They're not even in that crazy hair, yellow eye form that he saw them using before. They've completely dropped out of their wrathful form into base, but they're obviously not going to stay in base for long. Almost in perfect unison, the 4 of them all power up and scream in rage, watching their family members slaughtered, with Goku and Raditz especially pissed off by seeing Gohan and Piccolo hurt as well, nowhere to be seen. Remember, in this scenario, everyone's known each other for at least a year, with the original Saiyan group being very tightly knit and actually having a sense of family with their blood relatives, unlike how Saiyans are in the original story. I mean, that is the whole purpose of this what if, they're good now. They all explode with anger, and the 4 of them glow with their auras turning into massive flames. They now have all become Super Saiyans. And some of you are probably worried about Broly being a Super Saiyan, knowing how reckless he is. But in this timeline, Broly isn't a loose cannon because he had so much training in his life prior to this, unlike he did in the original story, and he's learned to control his rage somewhat, which is why he was even able to control Wrathful in the first place. He's the most powerful of the 4 right now, but he isn't completely berserk. He is royally pissed though. Now, let's get to a brief look at everyone's powers. There's no need to cover everyone's power levels, only the 4 Saiyans and Frieza. Raditz is at 350k, or 17.5 million in Super Saiyan. Vegeta's at 450k, which translates to 22.5 million in Super Saiyan. Goku's at 460,000, which goes to 23 million in Super Saiyan, and Broly's the biggest at 750,000, which skyrockets to 37.5 million in Super Saiyan. Together, they have reached a total of 100.5 million. And Frieza's obviously at the same power as he is in the original, 60 million at 50% and 120 million at 100%. Obviously, half his power isn't going to cut it anymore. He needs to go full power. The Emperor is astonished. He sees not 1, but 4 of those Super Saiyans that he's heard of in Legends. He's now a little nervous. Frieza is rushed by the 4 Saiyans at once and is beaten to a pulp. He doesn't go full power right away, and he's only at about half his maximum power right now, and he got caught off guard. The Tyrant is eventually able to break free and power up to his full power, which is greater than that of the Saiyans combined, but not by much. The battle is fierce but somewhat even, and Frieza begins to get a slight advantage again. Frieza is losing ki as they battle, but so are those Saiyans. Everyone involved in the fight is pretty injured, and no one, not even Frieza, knows how to control the forms they're using right now, at least not efficiently. As this is all going on, the other 4 Saiyans, Nappa, Turles, Shallot, and Giblet, are equally amazed to see what these guys are capable of right now. Since they can't contribute at the moment, the 4 of them decide to check if Piccolo and Gohan are okay. They do end up finding the 2 of them, who are injured, but still safe at least. The 2 were knocked unconscious for a brief while, and don't know what happened over the last few minutes, but they can sense the dramatic change in ki. They regroup back near the fight as they watch from a distance. Piccolo wishes he could help, as do the other Saiyans, but they just get in the way at this point. They watch as the other Saiyans lose ground, with Frieza barely being more powerful than them combined. They're all getting enraged watching Frieza beat up the other Saiyans, especially Gohan watching Goku and Raditz get hurt, and Turles watching his best friend Raditz fighting. That's when Piccolo and Gohan realize something. They're missing some people. Tarble, Guinea, and Paragus are nowhere to be found. They're not with the group. Gohan asks the other 4 what happened, and they don't know what to say, and just give each other some serious looks. In a somber but determined tone, Turles ends up breaking the news to Gohan and Piccolo, telling them that they'll make Frieza pay for it no matter what. While he wasn't very close with Paragus and Tarble, hearing that 2 innocent people died angers both of them greatly, but what really gets to Gohan is hearing about Guinea, his grandmother. The fight between the 4 Super Saiyans and Frieza rages on, with Frieza getting angrier as it goes on, and everyone running out of energy. Each side needs to finish the fight now. Out of nowhere, what seems like a missile hits Frieza. The 4 Super Saiyans are confused, thinking that someone shot a large ki blast at Frieza, but how is it strong enough to catch Frieza off guard like that? Even if it was all the other Saiyans together, they wouldn't really be doing much to him. Then they begin to realize, that missile wasn't a missile or a ki blast. It was a kid. It was Gohan. Gohan has joined the fight with the 4 Super Saiyans. Well, actually, now there's 5. They didn't even notice during the battle, but after hearing about Guinea's death, watching his father and uncle on the brink of death, and seeing all his friends being in danger, Gohan got one of those unbelievable rage moments that we saw when he was a kid. We saw this in the Saiyan and Frieza saga in the original story, and it's never really happened in this scenario, so all that built up anger was released and Gohan actually became a Super Saiyan, although he can't really control it right now because he's basically berserk. Well, not like Broly berserk, I mean just he's really, really angry. While the other 4 Saiyans are kinda in control of their power, Gohan obviously isn't. He's still a kid at this point, and he's basically blinded by the rage right now. Given his huge potential and massive rage boost, and how connected he was with Guinea, hearing about her death combined with the other factors I mentioned was able to push him to transform as well. Gohan is now at a power level of 300k due to a rage boost of his, and with Super Saiyan, he's reached 15 million. Combined, the power of the 5 Super Saiyans is now nearly on par with Frieza, and Frieza is losing more and more ki by the minute while using his full power, while the Saiyans are faring much better in their new form despite losing some power as it goes on. Seeing a new member with them, and the fact that they want to protect him in case he does anything stupid, the Saiyans all get back into the fight, motivated once again to defeat Frieza. Frieza is losing more ki by the minute while using his full power. And now that they have an extra person fighting, the Saiyans are now advantaged, and they're able to back Frieza into a corner. Together, they toss him back and forth like some sick game of Frieza volleyball or something. Finally, Frieza is launched into the air by one of them, and Vegeta commands everyone to fire now, using their full power. The 5 Super Saiyans, the 4 Base Saiyans, and Piccolo all fire towards Frieza as he's launched up into the atmosphere. The team's combined power kills Frieza for good this time. It's finally over. Everyone powers back down, and the mood is bittersweet, with Gohan actually going completely unconscious. They're all at least happy that the plan kinda worked, but they've got some other issues right now. Firstly, 3 of their members died. Well, that's not really a problem. Goku reminds everyone about the Dragon Balls. They just need to head back to Earth. The only issue though is that there's a lot of people here, and they have nowhere else to live. The planet they live on sucks, and this barren planet they're on right now is even worse. They'll all live on Earth for now, and they can all figure out a living situation once they arrive there. With the ship Goku and his crew arrived on, as well as a few smaller ones in tow, everyone begins their journey to Earth in order to revive their group. Goku, Gohan, and Piccolo need to get back anyways. With the round trip and the time spent on the planet, the 3 of them have been gone for about 2 years, so Goku and Gohan have a lot of explaining and catching up to do with Chi-Chi. They arrive on Earth safely, with everyone happy, but also kinda weirded out by the several other people that just arrived. And also the fact that Piccolo's there, and he doesn't seem like a bad guy anymore. Like I said, a lot of explaining is needed for the other Z-Fighters. They don't know who these guys are, and they don't know what happened in these past 2 years with this entire group. And it's weird to see Piccolo now not acting like that demon that wanted to take over the world a few years back. All might seem fine right now, but there's other threats lurking around. It's great that they all defeated Frieza, but he wasn't their only enemy. Sure, they took out a lot of members of the Frieza Force and Frieza himself, but there's someone more threatening that might show up in the future. King Cold has been waiting in space, and he hasn't heard from his son in a few days, nor has he heard from any of the forces that were with Frieza. He knows that Frieza went to some planet where the Saiyans were, and if you remember in the last part, a jammer was created to interfere with any scouter signals on the planet, and it was made to seem like the planet had no outside connections, even though that was a man-made thing. King Cold knew this when Frieza went into the planet, so he thought it was normal to not hear from Frieza for a few hours or so. But a few days? It couldn't have taken that long to collect the Dragon Balls, and there's no way the Saiyans could have done anything to Frieza. They're too weak, right? King Cold's starting to have his doubts, and he's beginning to think that this planet might have been a trap for Frieza. He realizes that the fact that scouters don't work on that planet for some reason is a little bit too suspicious. And while the Frieza Force was told it was because of the planet itself, King Cold's beginning to realize that it might actually be something else. Just to ease his anxiety, he decides that he and some forces should head out to that planet and check out what's happening, just to check up on Frieza to see if everything's going okay. He should be fine. There's no way the Saiyans could have done anything to him. He could just be taking a long time to find the Dragon Balls, right? The King's getting a little more uneasy by the minute, so now he heads out for that planet to actually see what's going on. And he arrives with his forces to find the planet completely empty. There's craters and destruction everywhere, and there's no ships to be found either from the Frieza Force or from the Saiyans. Keep in mind, this is happening only a few days after the Saiyans departed from this planet back to Earth, so all of the destruction is still pretty fresh here. King Cold is beginning to realize what happened, and he's not happy one bit about it. And while King Cold might come into the picture, there's still some hope around the corner for their future endeavors. Soon enough, they'll meet a new ally as well, a sword-wielding teenage boy from the future, but I'll have to save that for the next part. So with everyone on Earth, they now want to find a way to revive Guinea, Paragus, and Tarble. They are eventually revived and brought back to Earth, and now with all these new Saiyan visitors, they kinda want to begin a new life on Earth. Guinea's not really a fighter, and Paragus is almost out of his prime, so they're not really too interested in training like everyone else. However, all the other Saiyans are focused on trying to access Super Saiyan, which they saw 5 of during the battle with Frieza. It seems that any one of them can just access this if they're powerful enough. But it might take a while though, and I mean, being Saiyans, they all do train in the meantime. However, Earth isn't really as peaceful as they think. The timeline is kinda warped here because of the events. Because of the journey to the Saiyans planet, the training that they did, and then the journey back to Earth. In the last parts, I mentioned that those took about a year each. So it's been close to 3 years, and we're in age 764 now. Which means, not long after all the Saiyans arrive to Earth, Trunks is gonna show up because this is the time that he actually appears. And right away, it's pretty clear that this isn't the same timeline to him. Everything is completely different. He thought it was kinda weird when he didn't see Frieza and King Cold, and that he might have been a few days off. But on his way to Capsule Corp, he then realizes what's going on. He's able to make contact with Bulma, who gives him contact with Goku, and he finds out that this timeline is completely different. Goku did defeat Frieza, and become a Super Saiyan, but it didn't go the way that it did normally. He did get the help of 4 other Super Saiyans after all. And this is news to Trunks. There's 4 other Super Saiyans? Goku's supposed to be the only Super Saiyan at this point, and that number doesn't make sense because the only other 2 there are Vegeta and Gohan. It gets even weirder once he hears that Raditz is still around and he's one of the Super Saiyans, as well as some guy named Broly. But that's not even the end of it, because he hears that there's about a dozen Saiyans in total, with one of them even being his uncle. Huh, that's news to him. He never knew he even had one. That's besides the point though. He then gets caught up on what happened in this timeline, and then Trunks just decides to reveal who he is. He has no worry about screwing up this timeline because it's already screwed up enough. The good news for him though is that Vegeta and Bulma, although it's only been a few months, they're already together, but no Trunks yet. And of course, the heart virus thing still happens, because even though Goku never went to Yardrat, in my what ifs I usually like to assume that Goku got the heart virus from when he was a kid, because he lived in the woods and kinda lived like a feral animal. So it's not really unreasonable to assume that he got it from living that way when he was a child. So he does still get the medication from Trunks, and he gets news about the androids. Trunks sticks around for a little bit longer, because Goku's pretty sure that everyone else is going to want to see this. I mean, a time traveler appeared and he's warning them about a threat in the future, and apparently King Cold's probably going to show up too. This is all a very weird and confusing scenario for everyone, but Trunks has done his job and delivered the news. He traveled back in the past to save his timeline, and even though this isn't his timeline, he does realize it might be a good idea for him to come back, because he could learn some new tricks from everyone if they train over this 3-year time period. He might as well help them out, because maybe they could help him with training, since he doesn't really have anyone in the future to train with anymore. Of course, they don't find out his true identity, only Goku knows that he's the son of Bulma and Vegeta. All they know he's a time traveler from the future, who's apparently a Saiyan too. They're kinda suspicious of him, but they won't question it. He seems like a good guy. With that out of the way, Trunks then departs, and the 3 years of training begins. But it's not going to be a smooth 3 years of training, because eventually, King Cold does make his appearance on Earth after a few months. He's obviously going to want to avenge his son. They should have got rid of those pesky Saiyans a long time ago, so he might as well just do the job now and get it over with. Unluckily for him though, he showed up kinda late, because a few months of training was more than enough for all the Saiyans to collectively outclass King Cold, at least the way he is now. With multiple Super Saiyans, their training has been a lot more effective, and while the other Saiyans aren't at Super Saiyan yet, they're on the cusp of it, and they have gotten a lot more powerful in the meantime. We'll assume the point that King Cold shows up is about 6 months after Trunks shows up, so half a year since then. And I feel that's enough time for the Super Saiyans alone to become strong enough to outclass him collectively. So they deal with him pretty easily, a lot easier than it was to fight Frieza. No one dies this time either. And it's a good way to test and gauge their power to see where they are right now. Training resumes like normal, and I think you can realize right now that this is a little bit overkill. Just the 5 Super Saiyans alone would be powerful enough to take on whatever. But then on top of that, you have Nappa, Tarble, Shallot, Giblet, and Turles. And then on the side, you got Piccolo and all the humans. So you have 9 pure Saiyans, you have Gohan, you have Piccolo, you have Krillin, you have Tien, Yamcha. It's just a massive group of fighters. Everyone gets a lot stronger in this time. I mean, there's a bunch of training partners to go around, and everyone's motivated to keep up with one another, even if the humans have a hard time keeping up with the Saiyans. It kinda sucks that they're a little bit behind in terms of power, but it's not really a big deal. They train nonetheless. Hell, I mean, with all the Saiyans around, they do want to train Gohan, even though he is focused on his studying a bit. But he's already a Super Saiyan, so he's already got a good start, and obviously his dad's gonna want to train him, and his uncle. Because you know, Raditz isn't a murderous psychopath this time that kidnaps his nephew. He's actually got a good relationship with him. Over all this time for training, it does get a bit crazy, because with all these Saiyans trying to train to get Super Saiyan, they eventually are able to unlock it. Just think about how crazy that is. There's 10 Super Saiyans here. Now you could probably see why I was having trouble coming up with a part 5, because there's so many characters to juggle. And I mean, not only did they get Super Saiyan, but they are stronger in base too, alongside Piccolo and all the humans. So all this time passes, and then the androids do arrive. The entire group of the Dragon Team goes to the city, and they encounter Android 19 and 20. With so many people in the group, they're able to locate the androids a lot faster, and Yamcha doesn't even get hurt this time. They all move out of the city to face the androids. And well, there's some bad news because Goku still does succumb to the heart virus. But the good news this time, there's a bunch of people to take his place. With 9 other Super Saiyans, Piccolo, and then 3 of the other humans, it's kinda overkill. The androids aren't gonna escape. 19 is dealt with very easily, and Gero tries to make his escape, but it doesn't do anything. He also gets killed right away. So, was that what Trunks was warning them about? It didn't seem too bad. I mean, they did have strength in numbers, but who knows? Trunks does eventually show up, and then they realize that those aren't the actual androids he was referring to. But it's good that he killed them because it seems that one guy was Dr. Gero, the one who created the androids. And they find out from Bulma where his lab is. Well, at least the general location of it. This must mean the androids that Trunks faced, they're not activated yet, and they're apparently a lot stronger than 19 and 20. And this is really good because that means they can kill them preemptively. It takes some time to search, but they do eventually find the lab, and they proceed to destroy the pods for 17, 18, and one that they see that's labeled 16. It's better to not keep any android alive. They also collect any blueprints they find, and then they stumble upon something really weird. It seems like an incubation chamber, with some weird green creature inside. It's a project labeled Cell, and this leaves Trunks speechless. Is this another android? They frantically look through all of Jiro's blueprints and his plans, and they find out what this project actually is. Needless to say, they kill it right away. But that makes Trunks kinda worried, because that means it exists in his timeline too. And for all he knows, this cell is already complete in his time, and could just be lurking about anywhere. Trunks realizes that it was a good idea to come back, because otherwise, he wouldn't know about Cell. But on top of that, he asks if everyone can train him. They seem pretty strong, and they're actually on the cusp of trying to access something above Super Saiyan, which they've all been working on for a while when Goku wanted to see what the limits of the form were. Because of how effective the training was over the 3 years with all the training partners and the fact that people already knew Super Saiyan, Vegeta actually discovered Super Saiyan Grade 2 already, with Goku not far behind, with everyone else trying to work towards it too. But they realize that this isn't even the full power of it. They can go even further beyond it, maybe to a point where they have complete control over Super Saiyan. But they're kind of far off. Trunks doesn't mind either way, he just needs some training. It would mean he's going to be away from his timeline for a while, but it's better than going back empty-handed. He needs to make sure that this trip is worthwhile, so he might as well train while he's here, even if it does take a long time. For a few months, they do train with him, and Goku is obviously back in action after a few days, so he joins in on this. A few more of the strong members of the team, such as Raditz, Turles, Shallot, and Giblet, are even able to access Grade 2 on their own. And I'm hesitant to say that Broly would be able to do it, not because he's weak, but because his Super Saiyan kinda acts in a unique way, so I don't really know if he'd be able to do the same kind of Grade 2. At least from what we've seen, he's very different when he's in Super Saiyan. So he does get stronger, but I don't really know how he would work in terms of accessing these different forms just because of how his Super Saiyan is so different from everyone else. We haven't really seen enough of him to actually discuss this in depth, so I'd like you guys to let me know in the comments what you think. You know, whether or not Broly would have the same line of Super Saiyan forms like everyone else has. Like the 4 different grades, Super Saiyan 2, yada yada, all that. But that's kind of besides the point, we're focusing on Trunks now. Trunks is not only able to get stronger in base, but he does unlock Grade 2, which is stronger, but it's not really that great. And they all know there's something beyond that. Goku and Vegeta are actually able to tap into Grade 3 eventually, and they realize that it's kinda useless because of how slow and bulky it is, but they can tell that there's something further. Trunks is getting kinda antsy though. It has been a few months and he does want to get back to his timeline. And he has gotten considerably stronger in base, and he does have Grade 2 now, but is that really enough for him? Who knows what the androids have been up to in the meantime? He doesn't really want to spend too much more time here. And that gets Goku to think, and he gets an idea that he should have gotten in the first place, which he also realizes that no one else knows about, the Room of Spirit and Time. Maybe they could take Trunks in there and have him train. I should also bring up that by this point, Trunks is born in this timeline because Vegeta and Bulma do get together, so Vegeta is well aware that this guy is his son from the future. So of course, he's the one who actually wants to go ahead and train Trunks. Kami allows them to access the room, and after a day passes, they exit and they have actually found a new form of Super Saiyan. One where there's not really that much stamina drain like before, but they're still using Super Saiyan at its full power. The two of them, in the year of training, have unlocked Super Saiyan Grade 4. This amazes everyone else on the outside, and they want to work towards it too. And the Room of Spirit and Time sounds awesome. You get a year of training in a day? They're stoked to actually try it out. Kami's kinda concerned about what he got into because now he and Popo have to deal with everyone on the lookout and all the food going into the Room of Spirit and Time. But hey, what can you do? Goku's kinda surprised that he didn't think about this before. But better late than never, I guess? Trunks thanks everyone for their help, and then he heads back to his timeline. And he does claim victory over the androids. But there's one android that I'm forgetting to mention. Cell. So where's he been all this time? Well, he knows 17 and 18 were destroyed, so now his plan is ruined to become perfect. So he came back in time all for nothing. So he's just been stuck here gradually gaining energy while trying to remain stealthy about it. He could go find a bunch of humans and absorb them and get a bunch of energy that way, but he knows if he does that, he's gonna draw attention from the Saiyans, and that's not really gonna be good because he knows that there's a bunch around here. He's been in panic mode and been in hiding for the past few months while Trunks was here, because he doesn't know what he's supposed to do. He decides, screw it. He's just gonna go out and absorb however many people he can get, because maybe then he'll at least get a little bit stronger and could fight the Saiyans. but he's got to be quick about it because once he starts doing it, it's going to give away his cover. This is a last resort. He doesn't really have any other option, since his time machine is basically ruined, so he can't even go back to his time. And it's safe to say that it doesn't go too well for him. He's facing a bunch of different fighters that are all very strong, so by the time he gets noticed, he has no escape, and he can't really fight them off. So he gets dealt with, and I guess that means that's the end of the Android saga. I know it's kind of convoluted and a lot more different than the original Android saga, but with so many different fighters who are all very strong in their own right, Android 19 and 20 wouldn't really have a chance, meaning 17 and 18 would never get activated, meaning that Cell never gets to become perfect, so there's not really that much threat for them. It's a good thing that Trunks came back and warned them about it. But now, we'll be in a brief period of peace, and in the next part, we can cover what's going on in the personal lives of all the Saiyans. Or at least try to. I mean, there's a bunch here, so who knows? I'll try not to take too much time to make the next part like I did this time, so my apologies. But that's where we'll end it for now. We first get into the 7-year time skip, where everyone begins adjusting to their Earth lives more and more. After having been on Earth for a decent amount of time, everyone's starting to get more and more like regular Earthlings. For one, there's Guinea, and she really isn't a fighter, so what she's been doing is mainly hanging out with the Sun family, acting essentially as a normal grandmother. It's nice to actually have a peaceful life here, and have a great family along with that, and it's a similar situation for Paragus. He lives on his own with Broly, and he's aging and he's not really too much into fighting anymore. So what's a perfect old guy hobby? Well, Paragus takes up golfing. This is a joke I saw some people mention before and I thought, hey, why not? So in this what if, Paragus becomes an expert golfer, or at least he likes to think he is. Sure, becoming a Super Saiyan is cool, but in Paragus' eyes, it's cooler to get a golf score under 70. That's real power. Now let's move on to the actual fighters. One group of them is Turles, Raditz, and Nappa, who all end up living lives together as eternal bachelors and dude bros. It's pretty fun. They share a place, and of course they keep up training, but they've all developed their own hobbies. Alongside his brother Kakarot, Raditz becomes a farmer. At first not really being into it, but eventually growing fond of it when he realizes the irony of him farming radishes. Also, it's extra money, and they can get some good training in while doing it, so it's a win-win-win. Turles thinks it's pretty hilarious seeing his best friend do this, and he decides that he might as well do the same. When he becomes a farmer and gets into plants, he has a particular interest in trees for some weird reason. Particularly large, mighty trees. For some odd reason or another. And then as for Nappa, well, he wants to actually become a scholar. It's a really lofty goal for someone like him, but he's inspired by Gohan to begin building his brains as well as his brawn. He no longer wants to be viewed as the stupid oaf he's always been considered as. And of course, Shallot and Giblet live together. We don't really know too much about Giblet from Dragon Ball Legends, but as for Shallot, one of his basic interests, like all other Saiyans, is food. And we know he has a really good sense of smell. So what would be a good hobby for him? Well, one of my friends suggested that they should go into culinary arts for some reason, since they'd probably love to be around food all the time. Or maybe becoming butchers or something similar. I don't really know what they should be here, but you guys can suggest something below in the comments if you want. We'll stick with that for now though. Vegeta is obviously with Bulma, and he's pretty much the same as usual. I mean, when your wife is one of the richest people in the world, you don't really need a job, you could just focus on training all you want. And Trunks is here as well, but he's not older than Goten this time. Minor change but worth noting. As for Tarble, he may even live at Capsule Corp, potentially picking up a job there. Of course wanting to be around his older brother. And of course we move to Goku and his family. Like I mentioned, Goku picks up his farming job earlier on. It is a good way for him and Raditz to keep up their training, as well as doing something very productive. And with all these people around him being fighters, Gohan would probably train a lot more as well. With Goten and Trunks following suit, of course. Like I mentioned though, there is no real reason for Gohan to stop wanting to become a scholar. He's the same Gohan, so he's still going to be pursuing that. But it is worth noting that he does train more over this time period, becoming surprisingly strong. And with so many people around in occasional training, I'm almost positive this would mean that everyone can unlock Super Saiyan 2 somehow. They would be able to discover it eventually, and with more effective training like this, it only makes sense that they'd be able to find it somehow. But there is one thing that I do want to bring up. I haven't mentioned Broly yet. And as for him, he has a pretty lax lifestyle. I'm not sure what he could do as a hobby here, and by all means you guys can suggest something that he has as a career or whatnot. But in terms of his power, you guys did mention that you wanted to see something different for him. Like I said in the last video, he's going to evolve differently as a Super Saiyan than the other guys, given how weird his mutated strength is. So for him, his line of Super Saiyan forms will be a little bit different. Over the past few years, he was able to gain control of his wrathful state, and eventually his Super Saiyan form, which is a little bit different from everyone else's. But one thing that is particularly interesting is his full power Super Saiyan, that green-haired one that he has. It is an insanely powerful transformation that he is able to access sometimes, but he doesn't really have full control over, and it takes a lot of work for him to even access it in the first place. In dire situations though, he will be able to use it, but he has to be very cautious because of how destructive it can be. And I saw some pretty funny comments in my last video saying that this is the real definition of a Super Saiyan bargain sale, like Vegeta mentioned that one time. I mean, pretty much every Saiyan here that wants to fight is running around with Super Saiyan, and with a lot of them getting Super Saiyan 2 as well. Pretty much like I expected, this turned into the main timeline Vegeta's worst fear, everyone having Super Saiyan. Oh, and all the great Saiyaman stuff still does happen, and finally we arrive to the tournament. And as you could probably expect here, the roster is going to be filled to the brim with Saiyans. There still are other people there, but the roster this time is as follows: Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, Raditz, Turles, Nappa, Shallot, Giblet, Broly, Piccolo, Shin, Kibito, Krillin, Tien, Mr. Satan, and Videl. You may have noticed there's no Spopovich and Yamu here. That's because they see how many powerful people are joining and they know that they won't really stand a chance. Unless one of them ends up getting paired with Mr. Satan or Videl, they'd pretty much get screwed and knocked out immediately in any fight, so they remain as spectators instead, waiting for the right moment to strike. But let's cover some of the battles. First up, we have Krillin versus Tien, and this would be a really close fight from what I could tell. And it would be a nice callback to the old tournaments that they used to enter. Here, I would give the edge to Tien, but only a very slight one. I personally feel that the two are very close in power, and I do want to make an in-depth video about the two of them and see who's stronger, but in this what if I'm going to give the edge to Tien since they had basically the same training and I don't see any reason for Krillin to get ahead. Of course, if we were talking canon, my answer would be completely different, but since they've been doing basically the same stuff and none of them had a different experience like going to Namek and having their potential unlocked, I just don't see why Krillin would be ahead here considering that Tien would start out ahead of him. Like I said, that requires its own video, and keep in mind this is a what if, so don't take my answer as me comparing them in canon. We'll address that sometime in the future, because now we're going to go on to Piccolo versus Shin, and that pretty much goes as normal. Next up is Videl versus Gohan. And of course, Videl is really outmatched here, but the good news for Videl is that she won't be beaten half to death like she was against Spopovich, because it is Gohan and he's her boyfriend after all. Plus, I mean, it's Gohan, he's not going to hurt anyone. It would just be a friendly little battle with Gohan severely holding back. And next up we have Shallot versus Giblet. And here's where some issues start to arise. The twins are pretty much even in power. And they're twins, so of course they're going to go all out and see who's the stronger one, and really cement that sibling rivalry. This means they're going to have a very powerful and drawn out fight, which is exactly what Spopovich and Yamu wanted. So sadly we're not going to see a victor here, because midway through the fight, both Spopovich and Yamu come in and steal energy from Shallot and Giblet. Yes, both of them. The energy from two people that can go Super Saiyan 2, that's going to be really beneficial to Babidi. This is exactly what Shin and Kibito wanted, and now they could follow them and track down Babidi's ship. And a lot of the people in the tournament go and follow Shin and Kibito. This essentially means that there's no tournament left besides the kids division, which Goten would probably win here. Another dub for him, because in the adult division that only leaves behind Mr. Satan and Videl. So I guess Mr. Satan just wins by default because Videl already got knocked out. The champion maintains his throne. Jokes aside though, let's actually move over to Babidi's ship. Spopovich and Yamu arrive and Babidi's very pleased with their energy, but he still kills them regardless. He has no use for them anymore. But the energy they gave him, there's so much of it. There's no way. This energy is actually enough to revive Majin Buu. Remember, just the energy from Gohan gave over half the amount needed. So imagine from two Super Saiyan 2s that might even be stronger than Gohan was at that point. So he's revived pretty much immediately when they arrive. There's actually a Buu saga in the scenario, what do you know? Immediately, everyone could tell Buu is a formidable threat. Even all of Babidi's minions are scared. Pui Pui, Yakan, and Dabura are completely surprised to see how strong this guy is. And as for Shin's group, they're just as surprised and terrified. But while Buu here is really strong individually, the Saiyans all outnumber him. So maybe if they try and fight in Super Saiyan 2 all together, they might have a shot against him. They begin fighting him and Buu isn't really too much of a smart fighter, but he more than makes up for it in strength. However, with all of the fighters there, he is being continuously beat down, and he's getting really angry from it. The thing is, they can't really kill him because unless they all have one coordinated attack at the exact right time that's powerful enough to eradicate every one of his cells, he keeps regenerating. So really all they're doing right now is pissing him off. From the holes around Buu, steam begins erupting, and then he unleashes his anger. Something gross flies out of his body. Another Buu? This one is a lot more sickly and he's gray in color. And everyone is momentarily confused until the two Buus begin fighting. Buu just expelled that evil Buu from within him. And just as soon as he came out, they begin clashing. And we all know where this is going. Evil Buu eventually is able to turn Buu into candy and eat him. The team was hopeful for a bit that the two Boos would just kill each other, but it seems the situation has only gotten worse. Now, Boo is formed into a new beast, Super Boo. Overall, he doesn't seem much stronger than before, but he is a lot more cunning, and everyone is careful while they begin fighting him once again. But the most terrifying thing that they see during their fight is his absorption ability. While Boo is being beat during the fight, he does seem somewhat smug. Bobbity, who's still alive, is speaking to him. He has some food for Boo that he might like. Boo suddenly stops fighting, and then he turns over to Bobbity and his minions. Unbeknownst to Bobbity's minions, they were the offer that Bobbity made, and Boo immediately absorbs Pui Pui and Deborah. Wait, what happened to Yakon? Well, he saw this fight as an all-you-can-eat buffet for light energy, and that meant he exploded from eating all of it, but Deborah and Pui Pui still remain. As pieces of Boo begin surrounding the two of them and absorb them, Bobbity laughs maniacally, but Boo looks down at him as well, and he smiles. He doesn't care for Bobbity at all, and Bobbity just becomes another snack. Bobbity pleads for his life, but Boo absorbs him alongside Deborah and Pui Pui. The detached pieces of Boo come back together and go towards Super Boo. He absorbs them into his body, and he begins changing. These three people absorbed into his body give him some great power. While Pui Pui doesn't probably give that good of a boost, there's still Deborah and Bobbity. The magical abilities that Bobbity possesses amplify those of Boo, while he also gains the supreme power of Deborah within him. The metamorphosis completes, and a new form of Boo is revealed. What would be a good name for him? Debu Pui D? No, Boober Pui? No, that's not really too good. How about we just call him Debura, considering Deborah is the most powerful part of him, and that name sounds the coolest. And it flows pretty nicely. Debura, or let's just call him Boo for short, is so much more powerful right now, not to mention his magical abilities have been amplified multiple times over. Sure, Boo had magical properties before, but now he's basically mastered all of his sorcery abilities and has much deadlier uses for magic. And of course his intelligence has increased greatly. Instead of him sounding like a meathead, his speech is a lot more refined, similar to Deborah's. Greater power, greater magical abilities, greater intelligence, he's definitely a formidable foe, and the team doesn't really know what to do. Right now what they need is a distraction, and they need to regroup somewhere else safe. Thankfully Krillin and Tien are there, and they pop off a couple solar flares, as everyone begins creating a dust cloud around them. This will help them escape, as long as they all lower their keys. With Boo distracted and blinded and everyone's keys lowered, Shin teleports everyone out of there back to the world of Kai's. And let's leave off here for now. As I mentioned last time, Boo is now a lot stronger. Like I mentioned though, he's probably below Boo tanks in terms of power, but still, he's noticeably strong. But even though his power isn't anything too insane, what's crazy now is his magical abilities. The abilities of Boo combined with those of Bobbity, with the power of Boo and Deborah to back it up. His magic abilities are much deadlier now. Bobbity was already able to do a lot with his powers, and now Boo has all of those. Plus he has more power in terms of strength. This is a deadly combination. And yes, although his strength doesn't match something like Boo tanks, or even Buhan for that matter, I'd actually say he's probably more fearsome just because of the magic abilities that he has now. The group's first idea is to escape, but guess what? That's not happening. If they teleport anywhere, he could follow them, and if they try to fly away, well, he could teleport to them too. His magical abilities allow him to manipulate the battlefield, and give him a huge advantage in the fight. So since the group can't retreat and try and think of something else, they have no choice but to fight here. And although it's going to be tough, they at least want to try. Somehow, they have to work around his magic. The thing is, it's not like the group is weak in comparison. I mean, you have a bunch of strong Saiyans up against him. But the issue is, even with that, Boo's regeneration right now is just too fast. And his magical abilities prevent them from coordinating well. He's just as good defensively as he is offensively. And this is going to cause some issues. The group consults Shin for a plan, and he tries to think, but he can't really come up with anything. His magical abilities and his strength are too much for them. They're just going to have to try brute force. Too bad they can't go inside of Boo and cut all the people out of him. Wait, what'd he say? Shin mentions that if they were able to, going inside of Boo and freeing Bobbity, Deborah, and Pui Pui might reverse all of this. But the issue is, there's no way for them to shrink down and get in there. And even if they did, how would they do it without getting spotted? Shrinking down. This gives Goku an idea. It's been a long time, and he's not sure if this device still exists, but he remembers a while ago, way back, that Bulma had some sort of shrinking device. Wait, what? Yeah, maybe if someone can escape and go over to Capsule Corp or something, well, they can shrink down and go inside a Boo, however gross that sounds. So during the fight, someone's gonna have to sneak away so they can come back and, well, do the deed. It sounds gross, but Turles volunteers. This sounds like fun. As the rest of the group begins an all-on attack against Boo, it creates a distraction so Turles can escape without Boo noticing. As long as Turles is back quickly, Boo probably wouldn't notice because there's already a bunch of people after him right now. Remember, it's not just the Saiyans here either. Boo's magic is pretty annoying. He's able to teleport people wherever he wants, alter the battlefield, and even tries to change the gravity at some points. Although the gravity change doesn't hurt the Saiyans too much. Sure, it slows them down, but they've had practice in 500 times gravity and above. This is child's play. It seems Boo's having his fun, which is good as long as everyone can avoid his candy beams. They're able to hold off Boo while Turles heads to Capsule Corp, which is pretty much evacuated by now. Thankfully, Dr. Bruce is there, and he actually knows the device that Turles is talking about. They have some stored away somewhere. So quickly, he's able to get one for Turles, and then he heads back off to the fight. A little nervous, but also kinda excited. He will be the champion for the day. As he's flying back, mid-air, he activates the device. He begins shrinking and shrinking while he's flying, and this lets him enter the battlefield covertly. He doesn't want Boo noticing him entering once again. Shin's been paying close attention to all the energies entering the battlefield, and although it's muddled in all the other keys of everyone else, he could sense Turles entering once again, even though he can't see him. This is good, the plan should work. Okay, now he has to wait for an opening, a point in which Boo opens his mouth long enough for him to go in. Perfect! Boo just did a crazy maniacal laugh. Turles takes this opportunity to fly in. Boo begins coughing like a madman. He must have swallowed a fly or something. Gross. And since he doesn't know Turles is in there, he doesn't have other Boos inside of him guarding him. Turles descends, and in Boo's stomach, he finds them. Bobbity, Deborah, Pui, and Fat Boo. Instead of just cutting them out, why not just kill them? And he does that. Since they're unconscious, he's able to kill Bobbity, Deborah, and Pui after he cuts them out. And although he's not sure what it'll do, he also frees Fat Boo, but he doesn't seem able to kill him. Even though he's unconscious, that regeneration is still annoying. But the good thing is at least this one wasn't as bad as the other Boo that swallowed him. So maybe they don't have to worry about him. Boo begins shaking as Turles escapes with good Boo in his hands, dragging him by the antenna on his head. Turles flies out of his mouth and goes to normal size. And Deborah sees what he's done. He's unstable now. Good Boo has been freed. All his sense of logic and reasoning are going to be gone now, as well as his power. He curses Turles as he screams and transforms. Regressing, he shrinks, changing appearance once more. And after the transformation completes, Kid Boo is revealed to be in his place. Immediately, he does what Kid Boo would do in this situation, and tries to blow up Earth. But with everyone around, they're able to defend, nullifying the attack. He may not be as strong as Deborah before, but he's unhinged here, and won't hesitate to do anything, even destroying Earth. He's a loose cannon of pure evil, and everyone has to be on their best guard. But this seems like the opportunity they've been waiting for. They aren't sure what to do about Good Boo, but Shin guards him just so he doesn't cause havoc in case he does wake up. They don't know if he's trustworthy. The rest of the Dragon team takes on Kid Boo, with one half of the team basically defending against his attacks trying to blow up Earth, while the other half is focused on offense. Boo's overwhelmed, but their attacks individually can't kill him. He keeps regenerating. They need to coordinate one massive attack that'll completely incinerate him. Then they realize, when he's about to attack, that's their opening. Some of the fighters fly up into the air, distracting Boo. He prepares a massive attack and flings it up into the sky. They don't need to waste time nullifying it because there's nothing behind them. And immediately once he attacks, Shin is able to teleport to them and then teleport them behind Boo with the rest of the fighters. Just as Boo finishes launching his attack, he turns around, seeing a massive group of fighters preparing to kill him. With one huge combined blast, their attacks all group together and hit Boo head on. He tries his best to push back, but he can't. His hands begin to disintegrate, then his arms. With one final push, the group lets out all their energy. This is so many attacks combined I don't even know what it would be called. The Dragon team's Dragon Beam? Not important. This blast careens off into space, destroying every little cell of Boo. His body tries to regenerate, but whenever it does, those cells are destroyed. He's completely and utterly eradicated. Earth is now saved. Thankfully later on, they're able to bring anyone back to life and restore any damage with the Dragon Balls. And they're happy to have won here. Shin thanks everyone and they return the thanks, as everyone goes back to their normal, peaceful lives. So in the last video I did mention, what would Broly's career be here? I gave a career to everyone else, so he's gonna get one as well. Over this time, Paragus retires to Monster Island, where Broly lives with him. Why is Broly here? Well, he's taking Android 17's place, being a ranger on this island. There is no 17 here, and since protecting animals probably would be up Broly's alley, this is perfect for him. It's peaceful, fun, fulfilling, and Android 17 somehow got strong defending against poachers. So who knows, maybe Broly can get some nice training in too. This was suggested a lot in the comments, and I feel it's a good occupation for him. And over these next few years, everyone continues with their lives. Although it's been a while since some of them have seen each other. And it's not only time for Bulma's birthday party, but it's about time for a reunion. Sadly, Broly and Paragus aren't able to make it, kinda caught up with the island. But at least they'll be able to catch up with everyone later on. And Goku's actually not with King Kai this time, he's present at the party. And there's a lot, and I mean a lot, of sparring matches going on. A bunch of other Saiyans are there. Vegeta's trying to train up Tarble, Raditz is chilling with his boy Turles, Nappa's there, Guinea's there, and of course, Shallot and Giblet are there. As chefs. That is their occupation after all, so Bulma decided, hey, why not hire them to cater the party? They'll probably make some great food. And I'm mentioning this because it actually comes into play later. Yes, them making food is actually an important plot point here, because guess who's about to show up? Awakening from his slumber, Beerus is taken to Earth, hearing that this is the only planet that Saiyans are left on. He had some dream about a Super Saiyan god, and he wants to find out what it is or if it exists. Vegeta, Nappa, Tarble, and Raditz already know who he is, and Turles probably would as well, considering he's around the same age as Raditz. They're surprised to see him here, and a little bit intimidated, but Beerus is actually around to enjoy the party. Funny thing is, Boo's actually there this time. He lived in one of my scenarios for once. Maybe his friendship with Mr. Satan still is a thing here, and there's actually no pudding debacle. Shallot and Giblet are so intimidated that whenever they hear about Beerus wanting some sort of food, they instantly prepare a heap of whatever he asked for. He gets to enjoy his pudding alongside Boo. Pretty fun. But he makes it clear why he's here. He wants to find out about the Super Saiyan God. And none of them seem to know anything. They even call up Paragus, who is an older Saiyan, and he's surprised to hear that Beerus is at the party. And I feel like since Paragus is such a high level Saiyan, and he's been around for decades, he might actually have some knowledge about the Super Saiyan God, or at least the myth of it. He doesn't know how one is created, but he's able to explain the backstory of it and give Beerus some insight. But he does say this is a myth after all, and he doesn't know how much of it is really true. Somehow they're still going to have to find out about how to actually get the form. So Shenron is summoned. And the good thing is here, they have more than enough Saiyans for the ritual. But who's actually going to be the one to achieve it first? Well, obviously, they're going to want to give it to one of the stronger people in the group. Someone they know can handle the power, and possibly give Beerus a good fight. Having been under his command for so long, a lot of the Saiyans elect for Vegeta to get the form. And Goku actually agrees. Out of all the other Saiyans' respect for him as a prince and their former leader, and the fact that they know he's one of the stronger ones here, he's chosen to be the one to become a Super Saiyan God. Goku and Gohan were both considered, as well as Broly, but Broly's not there. And Goku and Gohan think it's fitting for Vegeta to get it. Besides, they could always get it later on. The ritual is done, and Vegeta gets new power. While in Super Saiyan, he floats up into the air, and his glow changes. After light dissipates, he's revealed to have red hair, and a fiery aura. Vegeta has become a Super Saiyan God. Beerus is pretty impressed. This definitely has to be the Super Saiyan God he was thinking of. Vegeta is intrigued and excited, and invites Beerus to fight. The God of Destruction gladly accepts, and faces off against the Prince of all Saiyans. Both of them enjoy the fight greatly. Although Vegeta does drop out of the form briefly during the fight, back into Super Saiyan, it seems he has absorbed the power of Super Saiyan God into his base form and Super Saiyan, making him a lot stronger from the get-go. Beerus is keen to pick up on this, and Vegeta doesn't even notice at first. And of course, the fight isn't hostile here. Beerus got his pudding, so he's happy. He doesn't promise to blow up Earth or anything. He's glad to have fought Vegeta too. And he's pleased overall. Although, he does point out, the Super Saiyan God form, and Vegeta for that matter, have way more potential than what he saw during that fight. Somehow it could be trained further, he knows it. And Vegeta may truly be his rival. Yearning for more, he decides he actually wants to take a student. Or maybe a few. And Whis will train whatever student this is. But the thing is, there's so many Saiyans here, who's he gonna pick? I mean, he can't just take everyone. Plus, some people have responsibilities here. Vegeta clearly doesn't. I mean, he doesn't really have a job like the others. And of course, he's Beerus' first choice. He is also interested in Goku, but he has someone else in mind. Actually, two people. He turns to Shallot and Giblet, the twins. It would be fun to train them. Why does he pick them? Well, they're chefs. He can get a bunch of great food out of them. And in exchange, he'll show them some great powers. Really in his head, he's thinking about how he just got himself two personal chefs. But hey, at least this makes him look good for taking on some more students. Shallot and Giblet happily accept. And it seems now he's going to train these three. That's right, Goku's actually not going to go with Beerus this time. Instead, he'll actually try to pursue the God form on Earth. Maybe some others will join him as well. Beerus thanks everyone for the food and the great fight, and tells Vegeta, Shallot, and Giblet that he'll be back in a few days to pick them up. They're about to get started on the training of their lives. This will be a great new endeavor for them, but we're going to save that for the next part, and leave off here for now. Just as I mentioned last time, Shallot, Giblet, and Vegeta train together, getting much stronger under the guidance of Whis and Beerus. And yes, Shallot and Giblet basically act as Beerus' personal chefs. while Vegeta's stuck doing all the chores there. Looks like they did kinda luck out after all. Damn, Vegeta might need to bring out his chef skills as well. While Vegeta's skill doesn't compare to them in terms of cooking, they are all around a similar level in terms of power. Of course they all have Super Saiyan God, and recently they're able to get above that with Super Saiyan Blue. Beerus is very happy right now. He has 3 students who may be good rivals, and he has 3 good chefs. Well, 2 good ones, and then 1 kinda mediocre chef. But lurking about, there exists a covert threat. One seeking to gain something from Universe 7. Frieza's army is flying through space, preparing their attack on Earth so they can get the Dragon Balls and revive Frieza and King Cold. After all their research, they figured out that the Saiyans were the ones responsible for their deaths, and it seems some or all of them live on Earth. All they need are the Dragon Balls and they're golden, no pun intended. But as the ships head to Earth, they notice something. Someone floating out in space. What, was this someone that they threw overboard? As the ship nears closer, they see a purple cat and a blue woman. The cat guy grins, as the woman opens a hole in the ship. Some Frieza soldiers are sucked out of the hole, as Vados closes it up and Champa enters the ship. They hold him at gunpoint, but he easily kills all the Frieza soldiers, as some of the higher-ups in the army prepare to encounter him. He introduces himself as Lord Champa from Universe 6, and he noticed the ship was heading in a direction that seemed like it was going towards Earth. And Champa asks about that. He was right, their target was Earth. That's not gonna fly. The ship suddenly explodes. No way is Champa letting someone attack Earth. Right now he's seeking the Super Dragon Balls for himself. He's gonna bring Earth to Universe 6. According to Vados, it seems Beerus is very busy at the moment. He's enjoying all the tasty foods from Earth, and Whis has 3 students to train. All they need to do is remain under the radar, and once they get Earth, they're solid. Luckily for Champa, he's able to get the Super Dragon Balls without encountering Beerus. He teleports Earth to Universe 6, with Vegeta, Shallot, and Giblet temporarily unaware. As for the heroes that stayed on Earth, of course they notice. News breaks across the globe. The sun has suddenly disappeared, replaced with a new star. The planets in the solar system are all different. Certain unmanned satellites are missing, and astronomers can't see the same planets and stars that they've seen before. What is this anomaly? Have they been sucked into a wormhole? No one is sure. Goku tries to sense Beerus' ki, or anyone on his planet. He can't sense anything. Same for all of the other Saiyans. This doesn't look good. Back in Universe 7, Whis points this out. Earth is somehow just missing, and the 3 Saiyans panic, assuming someone blew it up. But that's impossible. Everyone on Earth must have been strong enough to defend it. And they would have noticed. They would have felt at least some spike in ki towards the planet, but they didn't. Whis checks his staff, and he's able to find the issue. Beerus immediately loses it, with the 3 Saiyans curious to figure out what happened. Angrily, Beerus says one word, screaming out the name Champa. He tells Whis to bring the 4 of them to Universe 6. He needs to talk to his brother. Whis reminds Beerus to calm down. A dispute between gods of destruction could be disastrous. It is in their title after all, plus an explosive feud like this could get Zeno involved, and they do not want that. Beerus slowly begins to simmer down, but the 3 Saiyans are pretty angry as well. With Whis being the only one to keep his cool, he brings them all to Universe 6. The first words exchanged are from Whis to Vados, telling her they've made Lord Beerus quite upset, and she and Champa soon see for themselves, as an angered Beerus, surrounded by fiery purple ki, storms into Champa's planet. What we just set in motion is a new arc. I guess a fitting name would be the Planetary Theft Arc, or we could just call it the Champa arc. Champa glows to Beerus. There's nothing he could do. For one, even if he could take back Earth somehow, he'd have to wait a year for the Super Dragon Balls to reactivate. And of course, once that does happen, Champa's gonna be the one to collect them once more, making sure Beerus can't get them. 2, it's not like Beerus can fight Champa. Like Whis mentioned before, they don't want to get Zeno involved. And 2 gods of destruction fighting may damage the entire universe. And 3, Earth is basically Champa's hostage. Sure, he's not going to destroy it, but he knows Beerus has some people on that planet that he values. Champa could easily go there and destroy them if Beerus tries to meddle with his plans. And even if he did want to tell Zeno and try and get him involved to mediate, they're not going to do that because they don't want to anger him somehow. The 3 Saiyans are furious, and they promise to hunt for the Super Dragon Balls once a year has passed. They're probably more angered than Beerus is. Think about it, Vegeta's family is there, all their friends are there. This is not something to take lightly. Vegeta keeps himself under control, trying not to lash out and attack Champa because he knows that would be a bad idea. Champa of course notices this and even teases him. Look at that, this mortal thinks he could do something about it. It seems Universe 7 Saiyans are very ill-tempered. Beerus and Whis take the 3 Saiyans to Earth to see everyone and tell them what's happened. By now, they already realized something's happened with Earth, but they didn't know exactly what. Bulma tried contacting Jocko, but she couldn't. And with the change of scenery, they theorized that Earth might have been teleported to a new universe, and it turns out that was right. But they didn't believe that because they didn't know why or how that would happen. Until they're filled in and they realize the theory is true. The fighters on Earth ask Beerus to take them back. They'll train with him for the time being and try to help, but then Champa and Vados intervene. If these people try to leave, he'll erase them. They're under his rule now. He wouldn't want any rebellious mortals after all. It's not like he cares about killing them anyways. There's always more Saiyans out in Universe 6 that he could find. He really only cares about the humans and Earth as a whole. Luckily for Beerus, Shallot, Giblet, and Vegeta get to remain in Universe 7. Although Vegeta kinda does want to go to Earth, he realizes that he must stick with Beerus and train with him. Right now, he's motivated to get stronger and defeat Champa, as well as Shallot and Giblet. Beerus can't do anything, but they could still overthrow him as a proxy. They promise everyone on Earth that they'll fix this. And luckily, Champa's not going to kill them for no reason. They just gotta bide their time for now, and they should be safe. Everyone says goodbye to the three Saiyans as they return to Universe 7 with Beerus and Whis. While the Dragon team that remain on Earth begins training, the Saiyans decide it's wise for all of them to get Super Saiyan God, so they perform the ritual on each other. But even with this, it's not like they can progress as well as Vegeta, Shallot, and Giblet can on Beerus' planet. Their training on Earth won't be as efficient, but it's still something. They all tried thinking of some plan. There has to be a way for them to somehow please Champa and get back to Universe 7. But Piccolo's able to come up with an idea. He consults Kami and wants to figure out, could the Dragon Balls possibly restore a planet in this universe? One that is long gone. Unfortunately, this may be out of Shenron's power. From what they do know, Earth used to exist in Universe 6, but they know nothing of it, so they can't really do anything about it. But Kami begins thinking, and then remembers. By now, I'm sure that both of them would know that they're Namekians. With all the Saiyans there, and their knowledge of space, Vegeta, Tarble, or someone else may have told them already. That is how they found out about Namek in the first place after all. So nothing's different here. They've known that ever since Piccolo went with the Saiyans in the first part. And Kami suggests, an Earth existed in Universe 6 as well as Universe 7, so maybe there's also a Namek in Universe 6 just like Universe 7. And if that's true, there's a chance that Dragon Balls could exist on that planet, seeing as that's where Kami came from. It is a long shot though. They don't even know if the Dragon Balls exist on Namek in Universe 7, and here, that's even further of a long shot. But it's worth a try. Piccolo goes back to the group and tells them they need to find Namek somehow. But they have no knowledge of this universe, much less where Namek would be. But Goku, being his carefree self, decides they should maybe consult Champa. He does occasionally visit Earth after all, trying to get some new food. So during one of those days, Goku goes up to him. Champa expects some sort of fight or rebellion, but Goku's not here for that. He asks, does Namek exist in this universe? It turns out it does. And Goku asks if he can get a ride there, or at least directions. Alright, Champa's gotta ask, what is he planning? Well, he tells Champa that smaller Dragon Balls exist on Earth, much like the Super Dragon Balls, and they're made by Namekians. So, theoretically, there may be Dragon Balls on this universe's Namek. The reason he's asking is because with those, they could restore Earth in this universe. And then this Earth can return home. Champa sits there speechless. This mortal just made him look kinda stupid. But he is right. They could've just checked Namek. I mean, Champa does already know that Namekians created the Super Dragon Balls, so maybe regular Dragon Balls exist on Namek. You know, that would have been easier and less intrusive if he just did that. But he comes up with some lame excuse to blow it off, acting like this is something he wouldn't realize before. But, as requested, he and Vados take Goku and Piccolo to Namek. Universe 6 is Namek. And luckily, it does have Dragon Balls. The Namekians are very generous and they do know of Champa, so they're not going to screw around and they give him the Dragon Balls. I feel like the dragon on this planet would be as strong as Porunga is in the Buu Saga. From what little we know about Namek in Universe 6, they do seem powerful, so this is likely. The dragon is able to wish back Earth, and they want to revive everyone on that planet, but he's not strong enough to do that since they've been dead for over a year. Champa's a little angered, that's his shame. But then Piccolo asks, why not start new life there? And this is in the dragon's power. Instead of restoring people that died before, he creates completely new species and people there. Although they are going to take some time to develop. The dragon tells them of this. But they still have one more wish, asking the dragon to grant the humans with knowledge. So while they still do have to build civilizations, they at least have the knowledge that they need for it. Meaning, Champa's gonna get his food faster. Wow, that was actually pretty simple. Champa's really surprised he didn't think of this before. And with the help of some Kais and Vados, they're able to help get Earth a jump start. And that would most likely mean Universe 6's Earth worships these gods, having full knowledge of the Kais, Vados, and Champa. He's pleased and thanks Goku and Piccolo, as well as all the others, but doesn't admit that he was wrong. Word eventually does get to Universe 7, and the three Saiyans guess that means they don't really have to train to kill Champa. What a relief, because that would have been pretty hard. They have gotten noticeably stronger though, and admittedly, they did kinda want to fight Champa, despite the difficulty. More months pass and the Super Dragon Balls are restored. Beerus gathers them, and Earth is returned to Universe 7, with Shallot, Giblet, and Vegeta much stronger than anyone else. There's a few Super Saiyan gods on Earth, but no Super Saiyan Blues.
These three are much farther ahead. This was all dealt with peacefully. And it's great because Zeno doesn't know about it, right? Well, not really. Zeno is smarter than he lets on, and he has been paying attention. This isn't really something that would go under his radar, even if they tried to keep it that way. He's been paying attention, and honestly, he's impressed. The gods messed around a bit, but the mortals were able to help fix it in smart ways. Plus, they're all getting very strong. And you know what? He decides he's going to hold off on erasing the universes. If mortals are able to act like this, then there is hope. But if anything, he may be a little angered at the gods. It may be time for a reform to get them to stop being so bad at their job. With all this happening, that means we skip the Universe 6 tournament, the Tournament of Power, and even though we did keep Trunks' timeline normal in this scenario, for the sake of keeping Trunks safe, we're going to assume that the other timelines didn't have a conflict that caused Zamasu to turn evil. And we'll say they were actually affected by this. No Universe 6 tournament, no Goku Black, meaning no evil future Zamasu. And present Zamasu for that matter. Not to mention, with how powerful everyone is, that arc honestly would have been a little bit redundant. We know they'd win, but luckily for Trunks, that doesn't happen, so he, future Bulma, and Mai get to stay happy with their Earth in peace, blissfully unaware of what's happening in the other timeline. And although everything seems good now, an issue will arise soon. As I mentioned, a godly reform is coming, and we'll see that in the next part, but alongside that, a new foe is about to appear. A little bit more time passes, and by now, Zeno would have already started cracking down on all the gods. Beerus is taking his job much more seriously, so is Shin, paying attention to everything in the universe, but making sure not to get involved unless they need to. If they're not neutral, they may anger Zeno, so they're wary of that, although they still are allowed to train some of the mortals. Vegeta didn't really want to be away from his family for so long, so he's permanently back on Earth, as well as all the others. But Shallot and Giblet remain on Beerus' planet, still training to grow stronger. Everyone on Earth is training too, it's not like they're slacking off. But as Beerus is monitoring the universe, he realizes something. There's some sort of commotion with the Galactic Patrol, and Whis is keen to pick up on this as well. Of course he doesn't reveal it at the moment, but his brother is part of the Galactic Patrol, and Beerus knows too. Beerus is undercover, and this is how word gets to them. It seems an ancient and powerful prisoner has escaped. They're not sure what his goal is, but they know he's destructive. On his staff, Whis brings up a picture, a profile of the escaped prisoner. Displayed on the staff, the Twin Sea, a menacing looking man with the features of a goat, the wicked villain that's escaped prison. His name is Moro. As the finale of this What If, in the next part, we'll be discussing the Moro arc alongside with the gods. Not to mention, we'll be covering a bit of everyone's lives on Earth in the next part. Think of it as an update of sorts. I mean, I did make Broly a ranger on Monster Island for a reason, so you can look forward to that as well. And with this, we'll leave off here for now. We open in Universe 10. It seems all the Supreme Kai and the Gods of Destruction have been called for a meeting, as well as the Angels of the Universes. Zeno does not seem happy. As Zamasu watches the other two gods leave, he stays behind. He's kinda gotten the gist of what's happened so far. Zeno's mad that the gods aren't doing their job. And Zamasu, well, he's pretty angered as well. He feels that the gods are supreme, and nothing they could do is wrong. Whatever Zeno must be thinking is incorrect. And in all honesty, he's kinda fed up with Zeno. But more so, he's fed up with the mortals of all the universes. The gods shouldn't have to babysit them. And even worse, it seems that the mortals are mocking them by using their powers. If anything, these mortals are the one causing issues. Zamasu's been contemplating this for a while, and decides, why not go for it? While Goasu and Rumshi are gone, he travels through time. This is the perfect opportunity for him to get the time ring and get the Super Dragon Balls. And it works, he has what he wants now. The Super Dragon Balls were just used, so he does have to travel through time to get them to work again. And with this, he's able to wish for immortality. But that's not all. While Goasu's gone, Zamasu can visit the universe that he just got the Super Dragon Balls from. Maybe he can fix this himself. He's done his research, and now he realizes that he needs an ally, someone strong that can act as the muscle, and he's found someone knowledgeable that may be of use. So during his free time, he ends up meeting with this mysterious villain. In secret, of course, and he tells this villain about his plan. The third party agrees, seeing Zamasu's gripe and wanting to help, because he does get something out of it if he helps Zamasu. It's an offer that he doesn't want to refuse. Good, Zamasu's gotten an ally now, and he's immortal. Everything's falling into place. But there is one last loose end though. He can't have any gods interrupting. So what actually happened with the gods so far? They were gone for a few days. Well, in Zeno's meeting he basically lectured them, installing new guidelines about how they should be more active, while also not meddling with other universes like Champa did. He'll leave them to their own devices, and won't bail them out if something goes wrong. And he's fed up with how all the gods are acting. If they don't start acting better, he'll just erase everything. He did it with other universes before, so why not these 12 as well? So, for the next year, Zeno's gonna leave them alone,
and if the universes don't all improve their mortal levels, he'll erase them. Even if just one universe doesn't improve their mortal level, they all get erased. This is how serious he is. Of course, Zamasu finds out all this from Gowasu. This is perfect. It means Zeno won't intervene and stop his plan. A few days later, Zamasu unexpectedly kills Gowasu, now with the Zero Mortals plan in motion. First, he'll destroy them, and then he'll figure out a way to defeat Zeno. In Universe 7, on Beerus' planet, Shallot, Giblet, and Vegeta are all training with each other. They go to catch up with Beerus, and they realize that he's not actually there. That's odd. They can't seem to find him anywhere. They look for Whis as well. They were just training alone, but they can't find Whis anywhere. Huh. Did they go somewhere? They search around, but there's no sign of their key. Something may actually be wrong. And they then realize that something is wrong, as Kibito of all people then teleports in, clutching his stomach as blood leaks through his hand. The Saiyans are shocked, wondering what's going on, and they try to help as Kibito attempts to heal himself. Kibito then begins explaining. On Earth, more commotion occurs. Jaco contacts Bulma in a panic, wanting her to tell all her friends on Earth to be on guard. Someone has escaped their prison, and he's not sure what's happening, but this guy is bad news. Mayris also has a bad feeling too, one of the elite soldiers of the Galactic Patrol, and he decides that Jaco and everyone else should go to Earth with him. Everyone on Earth is confused, but they've all gathered in place. As Kibito then teleports in with the 3 Saiyans from Beerus' planet, telling everyone what's happened. Apparently, someone attacked the Kais. Shin and Elder Kai have been killed, meaning Beerus is dead too because Shin died, with Whis in limbo. Kibito barely made it out alive, and he says the perpetrator is Zamasu, a Kai from Universe 10. Kibito doesn't know what happened. He used to even train with this guy. He thought they were actually colleagues of sorts. Maybe that's why Zamasu screwed up and didn't kill Kibito. He subconsciously may have held something back. And Kibito also mentions he was with some old individual, someone that drained their energy somehow. A few days pass. The Galactic Patrol and Kibito are able to find out that some planets are disappearing somehow. Either their entire populations die out, or the planet itself just gets destroyed. But thankfully, this did give everyone some time for brainstorming and prep. After this time passes, Earth gets 2 new visitors, and they're on Broly's island actually. Broly looks up in the sky and sees 2 new threats are there, as energy begins coming up from the island. The 2 people there are Zamasu and Moro, who are now absorbing the plant and animal life from Broly's island. Originally, they did want to go to Namek, but thankfully, Kibito warned the planet, and all the Namekians are now somewhere else. Kibito created a temporary planet for them. So now, all the Namekians, including Piccolo and Kami, they're all on that planet with the Dragon Balls from both planets. So, Zamasu and Moro are now here for these Dragon Balls. They aim to restore Moro's youth, and if they can't get the Dragon Balls, well, they can at least absorb energy from all the other planets. Broly of course notices. Angered, he goes after Moro, attacking him without hesitation. Paragus is pretty concerned. He looks up and sees who Broly's fighting. He doesn't know how strong these guys are, but they definitely aren't normal. He hopes Broly will be okay. Broly fights the Kai and the Planet Eater, and thankfully he doesn't power up into Super Saiyan right away, because he quickly learns that Moro is draining his energy, as well as everyone on the island. Help then arrives as everyone else then teleports there with Kibito's help, and Broly fills everyone in. So these are the 2 threats, a Kai that's turned evil and an escaped prisoner, one that can absorb energy from people. They must be wary. Moro is happy if anything. This is just more energy for him to absorb. But even so, it's a lot of people for him to fight. There's dozens of fighters here. Some of the humans and Saiyans are split up to fight against Zamasu, but they quickly learn he's immortal and decide to hold him off for now. The humans are enough to take him on, as the rest of the Saiyans then join in to fight Moro. Even though he can absorb energy, he's disadvantaged in terms of numbers. And Zamasu notices this. He tells Moro to pick up the pace, getting angry. Moro calls him useless. He may have immortality, but he's not strong enough. He should have thought more about this plan. And due to him being a Kai, Kibito may be able to counter Moro's abilities, kinda like the Grand Supreme Kai did when he was fighting against Moro in the manga. Probably not as effectively, but he's still able to do it somewhat. And Zamasu gets angered. He tries to attack Kibito, but he's held off by the rest of the humans. It seems they attack too preemptively. Moro then tells Zamasu to come over here and help him. Getting an idea, the Planet Eater backs off as Zamasu is there as well. Zamasu wonders what his plan is as Moro then turns to him. This Kai clearly isn't competent enough to carry out this plan, so Moro might as well use him for his own advantage. Moro grabs Zamasu and then devours him. Zamasu can't defend, and he now becomes part of Moro. This gave him a good boost in energy, gave him some new techniques, and most importantly, he's now partially immortal. Here, Moro gets the upper hand, absorbing more and more energy from everyone on Earth. The Galactic Patrol is there as well, and Jaco thinks they're all doomed. Mayris is a bit hesitant to help. He doesn't really know these guys, but he remembers Zeno's words. Zeno wanted the gods to be more active, and even though he technically shouldn't intervene, maybe in this case, he should at least lend some help. He does want the mortals to solve this on their own, because otherwise they won't grow, but since his threat is so big and it involves the gods of destruction, he at least wants to lend some help. He then notices a perfect opportunity. Broly is getting enraged. The island is partially getting destroyed, so he jumps up to fight Moro himself. Now at his full power, Moro welcomes Broly to attack, but just as Broly is about to hit him, Mayris paralyzes Moro, and Broly is able to get a direct hit without getting his energy stolen. And this is enough for Broly to catch him in what's basically a combo attack. Moro's stunned and can't fight back or absorb energy, as all the other Saiyans and humans jump in too. Together, they all charge a massive blast. Moro opens his mouth to eat it, but from the sidelines, he's then shot in the face by Mayris. He looks down and sees Mayris with his gun drawn. And with his mouth closed, Moro then takes the attack head on, with all the combined beams erasing him. But from Moro's remains, Zamasu regenerates. He laughs. He's immortal. They can't do anything to defeat him. Frustrated, Kibito then jumps in. Angered to see his former colleague acting like this. Why did he do this? He wants to know. And it's good that Kibito asked this, because it makes Zamasu monologue, which gives them some time. He fights Zamasu, and of course, he can't do much, but surprisingly, he's able to land an attack that stabs through the evil Kai. Zamasu laughs, prepared for it to regenerate, but he looks down and sees the wound still remains. He's confused, as is everyone else. And suddenly, Shin then teleports in. Everyone thought he was dead. What happened? Well, it turned out the Namekians made 3 wishes. They asked Porunga to revive Shin, they asked him to remove Zamasu's immortality, and then they revived Gowasu. And with Earth's Dragon Balls, they were able to restore all the damage done by Moro. Now they have an all clear, and it should be an opening for them to attack Zamasu and defeat him for good. Weakened, Zamasu tries to attack Kibito again, but Shin and Kibito fend him off. The Kais fight, with Shin and Kibito coming out victorious. Zamasu is gravely wounded and tries to attack Shin again to kill him. But from the side, 2 people then punch him together. Shallot and Giblet step in with a combined attack, stunning Zamasu as he falls downwards. On the ground, he's caught by Vegeta, holding Zamasu up by his hair. The last thing Zamasu sees is Vegeta smiling, as he then lifts up one of his hands to Zamasu's chest. With a point-blank Big Bang attack, Vegeta leaves a massive hole in Zamasu. With Zamasu on the ground, almost dead, he bleeds out, laughing. He'll regenerate, just wait. His laugh becomes weaker and weaker as he then realizes he's not going to regenerate, is he? With blurry vision, he looks up and sees Broly stands over him. Zamasu put his entire island at risk, all the animals, everyone. That's something that Broly can't forgive. As the rightful protector of this island, he needs to be the one to get the final blow. He thanks the twins and Vegeta for helping, as Broly stretches out his hand, launching a beam that incinerates the evil Kai. And with that, everyone celebrates. Mayris wipes the sweat from his head. He actually thought he was going to have to intervene and get erased, but he is pretty proud. These mortals were all able to do this themselves, although he did lend some help. And the good thing is, Gowasu, Shin, and their respective gods of destruction are now alive again. And with the wish made from Earth's Dragon Balls, all the planets have been restored as well. With a combined effort from all the Saiyans, the Earthlings, and the Namekians, they were able to fend off this godly threat, as well as this escaped prisoner with a terrifying power. Gowasu and Rumshi then end up in Universe 7. With Beerus and Whis teleporting in, all of them try to figure out what's happened, as the mortals fill them in. Wow, they're pretty impressed too. And subtly, Mayris tells his siblings that he'll tell them more later on. But needless to say, all the gods are pretty impressed. They would have intervened, but they were dead after all, so they couldn't really do much. Zeno then teleports in. With everyone terrified, he saw this whole thing happening, and he knew what Zamasu was planning, but like he said, he wasn't going to intervene. He wanted to see if the mortals and the gods could handle this somehow. And even though the gods did end up dying, he saw what Shin and Kibito did when they intervened later on, as well as Kibito warning everyone. If Kibito wasn't there, well, they would have been all screwed. And he knows the other gods were dead, so they couldn't do much. He's content too, although his rules still stand. They need to improve their mortal level, otherwise everyone gets erased. But the gods are being more proactive, and the mortals are improving, so it seems like the universes are on track. Well, at the very least Universe 7 is, and it's a good sign. It's only been a few days since the meeting, and already he's seen some improvements. But this serves as a reminder for all the other gods. Specifically Gowasu, be better at picking your students. Gowasu profusely apologizes, as Zeno laughs saying he was joking, but he congratulates everyone, thanking them for their help. As Zeno then teleports away, followed by all the gods returning to their planets. And with that, it seems that the chaos has finally died down. The Saiyans can once again go back to their peaceful lives. Shallot, Giblet, and Vegeta return to Beerus' planet, saying goodbye to everyone, happy to have seen them again once more. They'll be sure to keep in touch. Broly thanks everyone for coming to defend his island, with Paragus thanking them too, sorry that he couldn't help. Broly doesn't need to thank them. They were just doing their job helping their friends and defending Earth. With the day now saved, everyone returns home, as Broly sighs, then looking back at the island seeing how much of a mess they made. At least the animals are okay, but he's gonna have to clean up all these craters. This isn't really gonna be fun. But with that, we can end this what if. To be honest, it's kinda sad to see this come to an end. This has been a very long running scenario. It started when I hit 5,000 subscribers. And at the time I'm recording this, I'm currently at 96,000. And I'll have even more by the time this is uploaded. It's insane to think about, so I'd like to thank you guys. But this may not be the end. A lot of you were interested in all the individual characters. People like Turles, Raditz, Nappa, Broly, all those other Saiyans that are included here. So many of them are different. So if you guys are interested, I may make a little something extra for this scenario. Just let me know below. But regardless, I'm satisfied with how the scenario turned out and with how it's ended. So what did you guys think about the scenario? Which of the new characters was your favorite? And following the events of this, do you think anything else would happen? Personally, I like the idea of Shallot and Giblet being here and becoming chefs. So let me know below which Saiyan is your favorite in this scenario. I also thought Turles was pretty funny. I'll be sure to check out all your comments to see what you guys think. As always, if you liked the video, be sure to drop a like. Let's see if we can hit that like goal from the beginning of the video. If you haven't already, why not subscribe, as well as clicking the bell icon to get notified about more videos like this or any other uploads on my channel. Thank you all for watching, thank you for supporting this long scenario, and I'll see you all in my next video.